to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
There wasn't actually a decision announced. Drinkwitz announced that he would play both Sam Horn and Bo Pribula in the season opening game next Thursday against Central Arkansas. Said he wants to see them both in game situations before making a permanent decision. Now, this indicates to me that, hey, this actually is close. The guy that takes the first snap is ahead. You can't do it any other way. You can't draw any other conclusions. So I do think it will be important. Somebody has to start, unless you want to put Ahmad Hardy at Wildcat for the first snap of the game, just to completely play mind games with everybody.
That was Gabe DeArmond announcing the news yesterday on the PowerMizzou.com podcast. Missouri made an announcement. They have not made a decision based upon who's going to be their starting quarterback in 2025. With Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Brandon Kiley. Mizzou is sticking with its previous plan. Sam Horn, Bo Pribula, those are your two options, and both will play against Central Arkansas a week from today. T-Bone, I'll start out with this. I think it's the right call. There was no urgency to make a decision here. Now, if somebody had emerged and was clearly the better option, just name them. But it's become increasingly clear. Bradford, you've gone to 5-6 of these practices. You've seen it. There's, based on all reports, been no real separation between the two.
Consistency.
They're similar but different. And what I mean by that is, like, if you're going to the overall rating, and I'm so glad I can say this now, overall rating in the NCAA video game, they'd probably be pretty similar. But if you're looking at how they come to that rating, it sure seems like they couldn't be a whole heck of a lot more different. Bo Pribula, very accurate, good across the middle, can run with his legs, more of a runner than a scrambler. Meanwhile, Sam Horn, cannon of an arm. Throw strength, you were looking at that overall rating on NCAA the video game, it's high. Arm strength is at a very high level for him. Accuracy, maybe not so much, but he's got a cannon of an arm. Maybe we'll make some more rookie mistakes. More of a scrambler than a runner, although he does have quite good speed as well. So, T-Bone, I think it's the right call. I'm glad they went about it this way. If they have no announcement after the Central Arkansas game and they continue to go with two different quarterbacks against Kansas, then I will be concerned and I'll say this is maybe a bit of a problem. But for right now, I think it's smart. There's no real risk to this because it's Central Arkansas. If you have any chance of losing, something horribly awry has happened. But otherwise, I think it's the correct way to go about it. Drinkwitz didn't make a decision, but he did make an announcement, and I think it's the right call.
Yeah, I think if this is 50-50, 55-45, however you want to view the percentage, if it's no clear starter, yeah, why not play them both? Yeah, now, I don't know how much you really do truly learn against Central Arkansas, but at least they're in a game situation. You'll be able to see how they read a defense, how they control the line of scrimmage, see what plays that they can make. If they can, whether it be Pribula makes a big pass over the middle, can establish a running play that breaks off for a big run, and then maybe Sam Horn comes in and throws like a deep bomb down the field, which, by the way, 93 throw power on NCAA College Football 26.
Okay.
Impressive.
Seems low for a guy that can throw 98, but all right, fair enough.
Oh, 93, I still feel like that's pretty good.
Go get it, Marquise. Go get it.
I think you're right. I think it is the right call. And again, there will be bigger questions if you have to go into the Kansas game saying we're still going with two quarterbacks, because that never works out well. But I think this is the right decision, and I'm fascinated to see not so much who takes the first snap on the first drive, because I agree with what Gabe said there. Yes, that will mean that guy's probably the one that's the slightly ahead in this competition. But the one that I'm more curious about is this going to be truly a, hey, they go, whether it be alternating drives, or maybe it's two drives for each guy, or is it, hey, you get quarter one, you get quarter two, or is this going to be like the whole competition, quote unquote, from Brady Cook versus Sam Horn, where it was, it's a competition, and then you watch them play whoever their FCS opponent was that year, and you're like, oh, Brady Cook's clearly... Oh, yeah, South Dakota. Brady Cook's clearly the number one guy because he played the whole first half. He was throwing. Sam Horn took over, and they didn't throw it all. They just ran the football in garbage time.
Yeah, he got 5 attempts in that game. It was very clear that was never a real competition. I'd never felt the same way about that competition, though, that I feel about this one. Drew Lock. Brady Cook came into that season as the expected starter, and Sam Horn would have had to unseat him in order to become somebody that was really in competition there. Sam Horn was also incredibly young at the time. He's now been on campus 3 years since then. So I don't feel the same way this time around. This one is actually a legit competition. I don't know who's going to start for Kansas. I think it will be Beau Pribula. He would be my favorite for that. I think Beau Pribula came into camp as the quote-unquote favorite. I think he remains that right now. And I think he will probably be the one that gets that first drive that you're talking about against Central Arkansas. I do agree with you, T-Bone, though. I think this should be operated differently than the way that they did with Sam Horn and Brady Cook. I think this should be a situation where either you get 2 drives for that first quarterback and then the next quarterback gets 2 drives, or first quarter for one guy, second quarter for the other. However you want to kind of divvy up the actual reps, like this can change as well. Hey, if it's a 75-yard bomb on the first play from scrimmage for Beau Pribula, yeah, maybe give him a couple of more drives to be able to find out with a more extended look, just the total snap count, how he does against Central Arkansas. But overall, this should be a split in the first half. It should not be 35-3 as it was for Mizzou versus South Dakota, when finally you got to see what Sam Horn was capable of in that second half. I don't want to see that. You'll learn nothing about whoever the second quarterback is in that scenario.
Yeah, and Sam Horn basically had a steady diet of handoffs in that particular game, if you recall as well.
He was good at it, though.
It was effective. It worked against the vaunted South Dakota attack. But I'm with you guys on so many of those different fronts. We are still, at this point in time, a week away from the opener, in the dark as far as the identity for the number one for the entirety of the schedule. But this is something about which, honestly, I was thinking even before yesterday's announcement, and that is months ago, when we first received that news, when the announcement was made regarding Beau Pribula coming from Big Ten country, right? To me, there was this expectation, this assumption really, that he was going to immediately be anointed as the guy because of his dual threat capabilities, because of the fact, most specifically, that he was hailing from Penn State. But when you really look at the body of work, BK, and you look underneath the hood, Penn State was extremely adept for a couple of seasons at basically picking the opportune times, picking and choosing when to insert Pribula. But it's not as if we know a ton about him. It's not as if we were able to glean a lot from him in game action, because with the exception of that late October contest against Wisconsin, second half had to come in, had to basically rescue Aller. That was the only game in which he had more than double-digit pass attempts. Heck, last season he only ran in a game more than 6 attempts. Basically didn't do it the entire time. So I just don't know if there is this known commodity for which so many Mizzou fans were hoping right off the bat. There is the unknown regarding Pribula. I don't think that's a bad thing, but it's interesting to see where we are now, anticipating as much, thinking, okay, this is a natural reveal, when we still don't really know that much in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, I think this was my expectation. The thing that's ironic about all of this, going into yesterday, like at the start of the day, I assumed this was going to be the plan.
Yeah.
That both of them would play. I think most people that were monitoring what was going on at camp had the assumption, hey, they'll probably play both quarterbacks in some way, shape, or form against Central Arkansas and then make a decision leading into the Kansas game. What made this more interesting is when Eli Drinkwitz came out at his press conference following fall camp and said, yeah, we'll have an announcement for you in 24 hours. Like, whoa! All right, they made a decision. Ladies and gentlemen, it's happening. We've got a starting quarterback at Mizzou, because Eli Drinkwitz didn't specifically state, I will announce the starting quarterback, but he said, I have an announcement in 24 hours. Got to talk to the team first. Then he talks to the team. It leaks. I have no decision to make. We will continue going along with the plan as everybody expected it to be. So he brought this upon the team. I have no problem with it. I don't think it's like a bad thing that they made a show of it. Whatever, it is what it is. But that's what made it interesting going into yesterday, was we thought maybe they would have some kind of a decision to make more than just an announcement. T-Bone earlier today over on The Athletic, speaking of my Missouri Tigers, they came in at 40th on The Athletic's ranking of the most likely college football playoff team this year, tied with the perennial powers that are UNLV, Iowa, Duke, UTSA, and Florida. They have a 4% chance of making it to the playoff, according to The Athletic. Your Illini who yesterday you said on this very program, it's an all-in season, anything fewer than 9 wins and a playoff appearance, it's a bust. Bust of a season for your Illini that have done that kind of a season. I think it's twice in the last 25 years.
I still believe that, too.
They are 31st.
What?
Behind the likes of Washington, Tulane, Baylor, Auburn, TCU, SMU, Indiana, USC, Louisville, Kansas State, etc.
The slander. That feels
Illinois
ridiculous.
with a 9% chance of making it to the college football playoff, according to the Athletics' early projections. T-Bone, your thoughts?
I don't. You know how Alex gets mad at Dom? I'm getting mad at the athletic college football people because the slander on my Illini has been ridiculous. First, you had, I believe it was Mandel that was doing the Big Ten predictions, and he said, "Oh, they're going 7-5," which is ridiculous looking at their schedule. I cannot see them going 7-5, 8-4, maybe 9-3. It's why I believe that would be like the bare minimum for me. But this 9%, less than Tulane? Oh, no way! That is ridiculous. Illinois should be a team that has higher percentage chance at getting into the college football playoff. They've got an easy schedule compared to most Big Ten teams.
Tanner, I asked you the other day, getting into it a little bit more, what is the biggest area of concern that some of these outsiders, the pundits, actually have? Because you understand now vertically it's not quite the same, but if Altmaier takes that next step, you still have a solid ground game and the physical presence that Bielema desires. What are the holes that these people are seeing then?
Well, the biggest thing that I keep seeing people go to, and the one that is fair
By the way,
is
your over-under set at 7.5.
which
Sorry,
is
go ahead.
ridiculous.
Then bet money on it.
I will bet money on it, but you can't in Illinois. You can't bet on Illinois colleges.
Drive over to Kansas.
Oh, I'm not doing that. That is a long
Or
trip.
Arkansas or Tennessee.
Commitment.
You know what? I'll just say out loud I put money on it. The biggest question for them is going to be the wide receiver room. Are they going to be able to replace Pat Bryant, which is a big question mark.
Yep.
I like the pieces that they brought in. They also got their tight end back in Rusk, who missed all of last year, who they really liked that transferred in from, I believe it was Murray State, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I mean, that's going
They
to be
think
the thing
he's
that
going
takes you
to.
over the top.
Hey. At least we know who our quarterback is, okay? Yeah. And we have a left tackle that should be an NFL caliber left tackle in J.C. Davis.
Mizzou's got a left tackle that'll make it to the NFL. I don't know if he's going to be playing tackle.
I was going to say, he's going to be a guard.
Preseason All-American, thank you.
That is the biggest question mark for them as the wide receiver room. The other thing that I find interesting, and I think it is somewhat fair. Everybody keeps pointing at their one-score games. Last year, I think they were 5-1 in one-score games. Everybody says, well, they're not going to get away with that anymore, so they can't do that. I'm like, man, their defense should still be just as good as it was last year, to where I think they might be able to get away with it and be able to compete in close games, to where I think that is being overstated by people on the national perspective.
Yeah, PK, we've heard that narrative.
Yeah.
Como.
Oh, yeah. Eli Drinkwitz is a one-score merchant. That's all he does. He wins one-score games. Now, most of the time, that evens out over the years. It has not yet with Eli Drinkwitz. He's just consistently been great in one-score games. I don't know if that is something that he can continue to get away with, but I'm going to hope and pray that he can. T-Bone, I think part of what it is the Athletics algorithm, whatever it may be, their projections are clearly higher on some of the middle-of-the-pack Big Ten teams than you are. They really like Indiana, USC, Washington, for example. And if you believe those teams are better than what you currently do, T-Bone, and Duke for that matter, well, then there are a lot more losses potentially on the schedule than what you're currently making it out to be. Because then Duke becomes a potential loss. Indiana becomes a likely loss. USC becomes a potential loss. Ohio State is a likely loss. And Washington on the road becomes a potential loss. That's your 5 games right there. So I think that's what the Athletic is seeing that you're not. I think it really just comes down to that, Bradford. I don't think it's as much about a huge glaring weakness on Illinois so much as it is, what is their glaring strength for the Illini? How are they going to go through this season? Because like last year, you had Pat Bryant. That was the go-to guy in big, key, critical situations. What is that this year? What is the one thing that week in, week out, the Illini can count on? That very well may emerge in week 2. It very well could. But right now, as of today, I don't know what that thing is. For Mizzou, I know what it is. It's the pass rush defensively, and it's the running game offensively. That has to be the go-to thing. It's probably going to be the running game for Illinois, because that's always been the case for Brett Bielema. But there have been individual seasons where it hasn't worked for his running game for one reason or another. And if that takes a step back this season, you don't have Pat Bryant, that could change things for the Illini. So that's the downside of it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's fair, but because I don't know what their biggest strength's going to be. Like last year, I thought it was their defense, not so much the passing game. Pat Bryant was a great weapon for them, and they would go to him in clutch scenarios. But even like the running game last year wasn't great for them, and yet I hear them talking about how great it is. Their O-line, they talk about the production they're returning, and I went, yeah, the O-line was fine last year. I think the defense is going to be their staple card again this year. Now, I don't think they've got the edge rusher as great as Mizzou does. I mean, Yakis will be good again for them, but I think that is going to be their calling card. If the defense takes a step back, they will be in significant trouble.
Quick trivia for you guys. How many yards did Illinois' leading receiver have last season that will be back next year? So the player that returns this season that had the most production receiving yards wise a year ago, how many yards do you think they had?
It's got to be low because I think they were brought in 2 transfers, West Virginia, Ball State. 200.
275.
295.
I figured it wasn't at 300. Who was it?
One touchdown. Beatty.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Trend upward, buddy. Come on now.
Yeah.
Come on now.
I mean, that's a lot of production to replace, T-Bone.
Don't
you
worry,
have to admit that.
We got a guy from Ball State and a guy from West Virginia. What could go wrong?
Yeah, no, it's definitely going to be 100% perfect. Nothing has ever gone wrong with transfer receivers that are expected to come in and be the number one go-to guy that are transferring up from a group of 5 conference to the Big Ten. Alongside T-Bone and Bradford, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Coming up in about 15 minutes, Logan Mailloux was called Baby Parayko by one of the St. Louis Blues prominent members. We'll tell you what he said coming up in 15 minutes. But next, Andre Pallante right now is like watching the Dakota Hudson experience all over again. What do we make of it, and where does that place him in the Cardinals' future? We'll talk about that next year on BK and Ferrario.
We want to hear from you. Use the Scott Lee Mic Drop feature on the 101 mobile app. Give us your opinion on anything St. Louis sports with a mic drop.
Brought to you by the Scott Lee Heating Company.
many years. Now he can be heard every Sunday from 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. on 101 ESPN. Doug's super excited to get to the ESPN audience as he's a huge St. Louis sports fan. Doug is an expert at minimizing the impact of market volatility on his clients' assets. So catch Safe Money Radio every Sunday at 10 a.m. on 101 ESPN. Doug Voss is a registered representative. Securities offered through D.H. Hill Securities, LLLP. Member FINRA and SIPC.
This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Pallante was able to limit some damage based on how he threw today. When you look at that inning where he loads the bases and gets the ground ball to a play, he's able to limit it there. He loads them again and gets 2 punch outs and gets out of that inning. I think the line could have looked a lot worse than it does. Ball's coming out of the hand well, but how he handled some of the other aspects of the game kind of led to some frustration when you look at the running game and the stolen bases, the walks, some of them being non-competitive. He battled through it at the end of the day, but yeah, we just need to continue to get better.
That was Ollie Marmol after the game yesterday. Audio courtesy of FanDuel Sports Midwest alongside T-Bone and Bradford on BK. Not a great showing by Andre Pallante. This has become a theme with him recently, and a big part of this is, man, is he allowing a lot of home runs. In his last, T-Bone, 10 starts, he has allowed 7 home runs. And in that stretch, he has an ERA over 6. Now, some of the underlying stuff says he's getting a bit unlucky, but that's going to be the case occasionally when you have the profile that Andre Pallante has, where everything is put into play. And that becomes even worse when you're giving up the walks that he is, when you're hitting batters the way that he did last night, and when you're now having a really hard time controlling the running game when you're on the mound. That has become an issue for him in 2025. So you're giving up hits, you're giving up walks, you're allowing manufactured slug by these guys getting to second without having to have somebody hit them over. All of this leads to an outing like last night. 5 1/3 innings, 8 hits, 3 walks, 5 earned runs. And the Cardinals really didn't have much of a chance in that one because, once again, it felt like the game was over before it ever really got started with Pallante on the mound. T-Bone, my thing with him is very similar to my issue with much of the roster construction. He is very much a crossover of what they have elsewhere. Andre Pallante, Michael McGreevy, Matthew Liberator, these guys are all the Spider-Man meme, where they're pointing at one another and saying, we're all pretty much like the other version of us. Now, Libby is a lefty, and that gives him a leg up on some of these other guys. And Michael McGreevy, if I'm just doing the comparison of Pallante versus McGreevy, McGreevy doesn't walk anybody. He doesn't have some of these same issues that Pallante deals with. So I do wonder what the future looks like for Pallante in this rotation. Katie Wu tweeted out yesterday, hey, September is going to be a really big month for his future in a Cardinals uniform. I mentioned yesterday, I think he could be a pretty intriguing trade candidate for the Cardinals, not because I think you get a ton for him, but I think there will be some teams out there that look at Pallante and say, all right, $5 million with 3 years left of control for a number 5 starter that can be our version of, McGreevy, Graceffo, Libby, previously Dakota Hudson. There's some value in that. I just don't know if that holds value here with the way that this current rotation is constructed, T-Bone.
Yeah, I agree with that, and it's why I think September is such a big month for him, because when we talk about 2026, I think it gets assumed that he's going to be a guy that's just a lock into the rotation because they have nothing behind him, and he is cost controlled for another couple of years. But man, the more you watch him, it is Dakota Hudson-esque, to where you just see him flirt with danger consistently. And sometimes he's able to wiggle out of it, and sometimes he's not. And you look up and you go, okay, yeah, he gave up 6 runs. That feels about right. 5 earned in 5 innings, something along those lines. I don't know what they do with him, because ideally I think it's okay to still have him in the system going into next year, whether that's as a number 5 starter, maybe assign 2 veterans and you make him the 6th guy and he ends up being kind of moved to the minor leagues, or you end up putting him in the bullpen. But he is a tough guy to try and figure out what the future is here in St. Louis because you have a lot of the same pieces. Like you mentioned, McGreevy's kind of like him, but he just doesn't walk anybody. And he pitches to the same amount of contact as Andre Pallante does. You also have Matthew Liberatore, whose swing and miss stuff has diminished. Again, I'm still banking on hopefully it's more of the first half of Matthew Liberatore that we see going into next year. But it's just too much of abundance. It's abundance in the offense. It's abundance with what they have in their rotation. They need more guys with swing and miss stuff. And as we have seen, Dusty Blake's done a good job of trying to help maximize these guys. But pitchers like Pallante, you can't teach them to have swing and miss stuff. It just doesn't come. It has to be almost more of a natural thing, a progression thing by throwing harder and having just an ability to spin the baseball. And they just don't have that with most of these guys in their system.
Yeah, you look at it, and part of this is also I'm getting closer to wanting to see Quinn Matthews. Quinn Matthews in his last 4 starts down at AAA, 21 and 2/3 innings, so he's not getting super deep into these games, but that's really, there was 1 start that went 3 innings that's doing a lot of the work there. And in those 22 innings, basically, 16 hits allowed, 30 strikeouts, only 6 walks. The walks are starting to go down. Now, his fastball velocity is still a bit of a concern to me. He's averaging about 91, 92 miles per hour on his fastball. That's not great for the major league level, but his changeup is still amazing. In his most recent outing, he threw 16 of them, and he had a 62% whiff rate, which is just bonkers. And if you've got one pitch that can play that way, I mean, that's more than what Andre Pallante can say right now. None of his pitches are playing at this level currently. So if you see another start or two from Quinn Matthews at the AAA level that looks similar to what his most recent outings have been, I do think there's a case to be made. Hey, let's go ahead and go to a 6-man rotation for the month of September. Let's see what this looks like. And you could even insert him like right after Andre Pallante to where you get to see those guys go back to back. And in that scenario, you're seeing McGreevy, Pallante, Quinn Matthews, Matthew Liberatore in back-to-back days. I think that would be a good thing for this team to find out what do we have with all 4 of these pitchers and how do they fit into our plans for 2026? What would it look like for us? To me, Quinn Matthews could be somebody that ends up taking Andre Pallante's job. That would be my hope down the stretch of this season.
Yeah, my hope would be that you see Quinn Matthews. I don't know if it's this year, but at minimum, like you just continue to see the progression. But I do think that I mentioned this when we talked about like what were you watching for a couple of weeks ago for the final 2 months of the season, and one of my top things was Quinn Matthews' progression because he is the guy that will make Pallante expendable or at least push him for a spot in the rotation. I just don't know if they're going to be willing to bring him up here yet. I think they're going to say, hey, we still want to see a long run at the minor league level of success, not just this like 4-game stretch where things have been better.
The thing is, at this point, is there a huge downside to it? He's going to be on the 40-man next year. You know that you've got 40-man roster spots to play with. So if you're able to get him 3 starts at the major league level, who is the pitcher that you want to see up here that he would be taking their spot? I don't feel like there is one right now.
Yeah, no. I would just say it would be more of just making sure he's not rushed up to the big league level. But I guess like the counter to that could be, well, he doesn't have to be on the big league roster next year, even if he is on the 40-man. So
get him 2 or 3 starts. Find out how his stuff plays at this level. It's the same argument that we've made for so many other players in the month of September. See what it looks like. If it doesn't look good, dude, at least that's information that you have, and it's information that he can now have. He struggled at the AAA level to adjust. He seemingly has found something that's working for him now. And it's only 4 starts. I'm not telling you to like write it to the bank. This guy is going to be a part of your opening day rotation next year. I'm not there at all, but I mean, given the way that this season has kind of gone off the rails down the stretch, if you can get him 2 or 3 starts, I think that would be pretty meaningful for him and for the Cardinals to have that information.
Yeah, I can see the path to where they decide to do it. I guess I'm just more hesitant from the rushing of prospects that we've seen in the past from the Cardinals, especially when it comes to pitching. But, you know, if I am going to make the argument of, hey, Weatherholt should be up here for the final month because of the experience, you're right. I can't really push back on that. I mean, it would be beneficial for Quinn Matthews to figure out, does my changeup play here at the major league level, and can I get away with throwing 91 miles an hour on my fastball? Because you're right, that is a big concern for me as well, and it's harder to kind of separate that changeup when you're not throwing as hard with the fastball. So You know what? You've convinced me. I would be someone that would be willing to potentially give Pallante another 2 starts, maybe another start, see what it looks like. And then once we get to September, why not? When you expand the rosters, why not make him the extra call-up and go to whether it be a 6-man or maybe you piggyback Pallante on top of a Quinn Matthews start?
Yeah, that's the thing to me is, you're already seeing Libby could use the extra rest.
And the other thing, too, you could do Pallante with Libby as a piggyback.
Yeah, I would probably keep everybody in the rotation as is, and I would utilize somebody from your bullpen because now you've got the extra arm. So you utilize all of your current options in your bullpen for those innings if you need to back somebody up, whether that be Liberatore, Pallante, etc. I think you could make this work. And somebody, iRock over on YouTube, youtube.com/101ESPN STL is where you go for the YouTube chat today. iRock said his velocity, speaking of Quinn Matthews, is still nowhere near MLB ready. Calling up a guy after only a couple of good starts would be so dumb. Generally speaking, I would agree with that. I'm not somebody that likes to rush prospects. I think you give it more time. So if this was July, I would not be arguing in favor of Quinn Matthews getting an opportunity in the major leagues. I think that would be crazy. But we're approaching September. I'm making the case that as he makes 2 more starts at the AAA level, and you get into the month of September, and then you have that opportunity to call a guy up as the extra roster spot on the pitching side of things, and he only has a month left of runway no matter what, whether he's at the AAA level or at the major league level. He actually, in fact, has another week at the major league level to be able to continue to pitch. That's where I think the benefit comes in, is you get to find out 3, maybe 4 starts in the month of September when it doesn't really change your roster at all. And that's just information that he has and that the Cardinals have to take into the offseason to help in preparation for 2026, when I do think you should expect Quinn Matthews to contribute in some kind of way for the major league roster. So I think it makes sense for them. I think it's probably the way that they should go about it. But it is all dependent upon the next couple of starts. And I think for me, what we saw yesterday from Andre Pallante and really what we have seen for most of this season from Pallante is a part of this as well. I want to see those two going head-to-head down the stretch at the major league level to inform my decision on whether or not I can trade Andre Pallante this offseason or if I need him to cover the innings in 2026.
And I would say it is more important to get answers, and not so much on Quinn Matthews, but Pallante would fall into that, but answers on where is he at in his development as a starting pitcher than it is bringing up an extra bullpen arm.
Exactly.
Because who is it? I think it's Graceffo's the one that's down in the minor leagues right now. They sent down somebody who threw a bunch of innings.
Graceffo, Munoz, those are the 2 guys really. Maybe Roycroft. Those are the 3 that are options currently on your 40-man.
If we're being honest, the bullpen market is such a fickle business. I don't think you're really going to learn. We like what we're seeing from Swanson, right? Swanson could be Ryan Fernandez next year at the beginning of the year. So, finding out answers, quote-unquote, on bullpen arms, though, yes, it is nice to see them kind of stepping into these roles. I don't need to find more of that out in September because it changes once you get back into spring training of 2026. At least with Matthews, starting pitching's a little bit more consistent because it's a bigger sample size.
Also, to be candid, you can just continue to do this thing with the AAA / St. Louis Memphis shuttle, where Granillo will probably go down at some point in the month of September. Fernandez maybe will go down at some point in the month of September, and then that's the way you get Graceffo back up here at some point. Maybe you want to see Munoz. Maybe you need his length to give you some more innings at some point. There's ways to get around that, whereas with Quinn Matthews, he needs the runway up here at the big league level. Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll get into questions and answers. 314-399-9646. That's the Air Comfort Service text line if you guys have any questions. But next, we're calling Logan Mailloux baby Parayko now. That's according to the Blues head coach. We'll pass along more information on that next here on 101 ESPN.
Sign up to play fantasy football with Adam Wainwright, Lars Nootbaar, and others during Big League Impact's 2025 fantasy football season. Help support some awesome charitable causes handpicked by the participating players. And show off your fantasy skills with a chance to win a variety of prizes. Space is limited.
You can find all the details on how to sign up for Big League Impact's 2025 fantasy football season now at 101ESPN.com.
your opinion on the Air Comfort Service heating, cooling, and insulation text line at 314-399-9646 on 101 ESPN. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Alcantara handcuffs Cardinals. I'm Bradford Bruns. Your Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Former Cy Young winner Sandy Alcantara stymied St. Louis on Wednesday night, helping Miami salvage the series finale. Marlins taking care of business 6-2. Alcantara allowed one earned run while fanning 9 over 7 innings. His mound counterpart labored through 5+ frames. Andre Pallante surrendering 8 hits, throwing 93 pitches, 54 for strikes. STL begins a 3-game set against Tampa Bay this evening. MU football, Bo Perbula and Sam Horn will both play come August 28th. Central Arkansas visiting Memorial Stadium then. Week 0 action getting underway in roughly 48 hours. Kansas State, Iowa State marking that college pigskin opener. Your Sports Center update was driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Alongside T-Bone and Bradford, I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. So I was reading a Q&A that the St. Louis Post-Dispatch did with Jim Montgomery. They asked about the trade that sent Zach Bolduc up to the Montreal Canadiens, and in return, the Blues got Logan Mailloux, a very young, big, right-shot defenseman. And T-Bone, this is what they had to say about Logan Mailloux, speaking of Jim Montgomery. Quote, Logan Mailloux is a man-child in a really good way. A lot of people are going to see a baby Parayko.
Oh.
Although they're not exactly the same, this young man may have more physicality to him naturally, and he may have a little more offensive upside in the passing department, but he can really bomb it. We're trying to not to get too excited because we want to see him come in, and we haven't really worked with him, but we think that he's going to be somebody that's going to help us as he grows. If he takes the same steps as Tucker, Bolduc, Snuggerud, he's going to be a really good Blue for a really long time, end quote.
All right, I'm excited.
I feel like what he was trying to do there after he said, a lot of people are going to see a baby Parayko. Although they're not exactly the same, I think Jim Montgomery was like, I probably should distance that. And then he went on to say, more physicality, better shot. I don't know, man. He got more upside offensively. So he went there, pulled back, and then said, you know what, bleep it. We're going full throttle. Let's go, baby. What do you make of the head coach of the St. Louis Blues, Jim Montgomery, calling Logan Mailloux a baby Parayko with higher offensive upside and more physicality, T-Bone?
Well, I was already kind of excited about just thinking of the upside play that Army made by trading Bolduc for Logan Mailloux, and especially after the trade, we had someone from the scouting department, I think it was, from the Montreal Canadiens, or a player development coach from the Montreal Canadiens, and we talked to some of the beat writers up in Montreal, and I was like, okay, I like what they're doing, I can see it here, and then I heard baby Parayko, and I was like, okay, now I'm really excited because you look at what Parayko did, and I'm not saying Mailloux would do this in his age 22 season because Jim Montgomery, the part where he did pull the reins back a little bit, did say, hey, we still have to work with him. But Parayko at age 22, which is what Mailloux will be this year for the Blues, 79 games played, 9 goals, 24 assists, that's 33 points. It was a plus 28. That was incredible, and I remember that year from Colton Parayko. And if you're just telling me right now, maybe you don't even get that upside where there is more offensive upside, better passer, as Monty said there. But if that's what you got in year 1 from Logan Mailloux, and then you can only continue to dream on what the upside would become for him as he develops with the St. Louis Blues, oh my gosh, it's another incredible steal from Doug Armstrong and a great evaluation from the Blues and what they're able to acquire. And again, go back to what we talked about yesterday when we were talking about the front office rankings, their ability to just kind of retool this defense on the fly. And we're talking about Mailloux as a third pair guy. And that's what, when the Blues were at their best, what Parayko was at first, third pair, moved into that second pair, then really solidified himself to eventually become the top dog. I mean, it just makes you really dream on what Logan Mailloux is going to be when you hear baby Parayko.
Yeah, I don't love that this got out. I think it's a bit unfair for Logan Mailloux. I see what Jim Montgomery's doing here. Get people excited. It is what it is, right? But this is something that the Cardinals have fallen victim to in recent seasons. Really, it's been a while now. But they get people overly excited for some of their young players. And when they don't live up to those unrealistic expectations, it results in people being like, well, wait, I thought Juan Yepes was supposed to be baby Pujols. I thought Jordan Walker was the best prospect since Pujols. I thought Dylan Carlson was this cold dead hands player. So now that they are, I mean, in some cases, just not very good players. In other cases, average. Or Lars Nootbaar, he's supposed to be the star. Well, no, he became a star, quote unquote, because his popularity went worldwide when he was a big part of the Team Japan, right? So I think sometimes this sets players up almost for unrealistic expectations. And I do fear that is what this kind of a comment will do for Logan Mailloux. Every scouting report that we've heard, including from the guy that you're mentioning there, T-Bone, from Montreal, is, hey, there's still a lot of work to be done defensively. And for all of the excitement about Colton Parayko, really, his best asset is what he does defensively. So I don't want to get out and say, like, hey, he's Colton Parayko, which means immediately you're going to be really excited about what he does against top-line players. That's not who Mailloux, according to reports, is at this point in his career. Maybe he gets there, but right now, probably not. I think the comparison is really, hey, he's big, strong, skates well, and has some offensive upside. And the only player on the Blues that has that profile, that has had that profile for a number of years now, is Colton Parayko. So that's the natural comparison point. I think a closer comparison is probably like, hey, can you get 60% of what Philip Broberg was last year? Because Broberg has all of that. He's got the size, he's got the speed, he's got the offensive upside, and he was really good for most of the season for the Blues last year. If you could get 60 or 70% of that this season, I think that would be a huge win for Logan Mailloux. To compare him to Parayko, I think it is what it is, but I think it kind of sets him up for failure among Blues fans and their expectations going into this season.
I think it will potentially early on, and it will be because of the defense that you mentioned. But to be fair to the Blues, when they have put these expectations, now they've missed like early on, but they've kind of been right and gotten to where they wanted with those guys. Like I remember Colton Parayko when it was, I think it was right after Petro left, or maybe right before that, whatever it was, the maybe extension was signed. I remember Army saying like, hey, he's got that dog in him, right? He's the alpha dog. And like early on you watch Parayko and you're like, hey, I don't know if that's there for him. Like he's a good defenseman, but is he a true number one defenseman? And he's finally gotten to that point. He is a number one defenseman, shutdown defenseman. He's not going to be the Cale Makars that put up, 80 points in a season while also being a shutdown defenseman. But he's kind of lived up to that expectation. They kind of put the pressure on, hey, Robert Thomas is going to be the number one center. It's why they gave him the big contract extension prior to Ryan O'Reilly being gone. And you want to talk about pressure, replace the guy that won the Conn Smythe when they won the Stanley Cup championship back in 19. And to his credit, Robert Thomas, I think, has lived up to those expectations. So I don't necessarily, I think at times it can be detrimental to the player, but I also think at times it is, hey, the organization believes in the talent, and it's a matter of, is the player going to be willing to put the work in to get to that spot?
Yeah, I would say for both of those players that you just mentioned, it was detrimental to both of them. I don't think it was helpful for Colton Parayko to be labeled as the alpha immediately after Petro left. I think that was part of what led to such strong pushback against him as a player. I don't think it was always fair, but he was placed into a position where expectations were such that he needed to replace Petro. He's not Petro. He still isn't Petro at this point in his career. He's a really good player. He's a legit top pair defenseman. Petro is one of like 10 defensemen in the last decade that carry that kind of weight, that play in every situation, power play quarterback, PK, 5-on-5, shutdown, everything that you could possibly ask for. He was that. And I don't think Parayko is or will be that kind of a player for the Blues. And I think for about 3 years now there, he was expected to be something more than what he was. I think just now, 3 or 4 years later, people are finally starting to settle in. Okay, this is who Colton Parayko is. He's a very good player. Maybe he's not Petro, but he's our number one defenseman, and that's good enough. I think with Robert Thomas, I can only speak for myself early on. I do think I was like, okay, this is the guy? This is the guy that's expected to immediately take over for Ryan O'Reilly, and I don't think he lived up to those expectations early on, and I think it did hurt him a bit. I think Jordan Kyrou, I could say the same thing about him as well. So, yes, I think all of these players that you have mentioned eventually got over that hump, but it took probably about 3 years for all of them to be able to do so. So Logan Mailloux may eventually become baby Parayko. I would like to see it a little bit before I'm willing to go there with him. And I do think it sets unrealistic expectations early on for who the player is going to be. Again, all of this is, I don't really care. It is what it is. I'm excited to see him as a player, and I'm thrilled that Jim Montgomery is the Blues head coach. I just think sometimes I love these quotes because they're great for us. It's fun fodder. I think sometimes if you're a young player, it can put unrealistic expectations on you. Coming up next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers here on BK and Ferrario.
It's an MLB weekend on ESPN. Yankees and Red Sox. Game 1, Saturday. First pitch, 12:05. Then Sunday, it's Game 2. First pitch, 6:10. The MLB plays on 101 ESPN.
Enter to win for a huge party pack of sliders and fries from Small's Sliders right now at 101ESPN.com. Small's Sliders is famous for serving up the freshest cooked-to-order cheeseburger sliders, crispy seasoned waffle fries, and they have even teamed up with Dr. Pepper for the brand new Dr. Pepper Swirl Shake, available for a limited time. Now with 2 locations in Bridgeton and their newest spot located at 15751 Manchester Road in Ellisville. Get entered to win that delicious party pack of sliders and fries from Small Sliders right now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app.
Getting you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. You've got questions, we may have the answers. Maybe. It's BK and Ferrario's questions and answers on 101 ESPN.
From the 573, you guys give out the text line constantly, but seldom do you take questions or comments from the text line. It's usually just a waste of my time to make a comment or ask a question.
Glad we picked that one.
We give out the text line to see what is on the text line, and if there are good comments or questions, we're happy to take them, especially in this segment, which is questions and answers. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. From the 314, guys, if the Cardinals trade Sonny Gray this offseason, do you see them retaining Michaelis on a 1-year deal? I do not. I do not think Miles Michaelis will be back next season.
Yeah, I think they will sign a veteran starter, but a veteran starter that's got like a little swing and miss, like an Andrew Heaney, Jose Quintana type that'll be like 1 year, $2 to $5 million. I don't think they're going to go the route of pitching to contact again.
Is Miles pitching in the bigs at this time next year?
Yeah. I think he'll have another 1 year deal.
I think he'll get a spring training invite. I don't think he'll make a big league roster.
I think people underestimate the value of a guy that can throw a bunch of innings. Those guys stick around for a really long time more often than not, even if they're not very good innings. Eric Fetty's still starting, man. He's still out there, even if he's not very good. There are a lot of teams that have a lack of starting pitching. And Miles Michaelis, like a team like the Dodgers, who go into every season with like 10 to 15 different starters, and they expect overall them to just make up their 30 starts per spot in the rotation. I could see a team like that saying, you know what, we'll go ahead and take a 1 year, $3 million flyer on Miles Michaelis. Hopefully he helps us get through the first few months of the season, and then they trade him somewhere else, and then he goes on to start somewhere that has injuries.
Yeah, you see there's a lot of rebuilding teams too who don't want to rush their young pitching. That's why we keep saying, hey, Cardinals are probably going to sign one, if not two young veterans, because A, they don't have anything coming, but B, they don't want to rush anything in the lower levels either.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers from the 217. Guys, do you think Matthews, Doyle, and Libby all being lefties is going to be a problem for the Cardinals in the future? Do they need to trade one of those three? If they're good, they're good. I don't care. I think that sometimes we make too much of, on the pitching side of things, which hand you throw with. As long as you are good, go ahead and put them out there. Now, when it comes to the back end of your rotation, that's where it can potentially be a problem sometimes. So I would point more to the Matthews versus Liberator. Doyle, to me, is in a separate conversation entirely. Could that become something that they want to alleviate and have just one of them at the back end of the rotation? Maybe. But for right now, I don't see that as an issue at all.
Yeah, I don't either, and I typically agree with you. Like, does the guy get outs or not? If he's left-handed, right-handed, I don't care. Same with like hitters. Can he hit a left-handed pitcher as a lefty? Because if so, then I don't care that I have 5 left-handers. The problem for the Cardinals is they've got a bunch of lefties that don't hit left-handed pitching. So yeah, I'm not overly concerned that they're getting quote-unquote left-handed heavy with their pitchers.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 314. Guys, do you ever see Ivan Herrera playing catcher again in his Cardinals career? I do not. I think we've seen it. I think he is a outfielder / first baseman / DH moving forward for the Cardinals.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Watching Herrera this year, still had the issues of catching base stealers, which was one of many problems with him behind the plate. Also game calling, that thing we don't know. There's no way for us to understand that. But yeah, I agree with you. I think he's going to end up settling in as a left fielder / DH, and then maybe you get him reps at first base when Contreras is gone.
From the 573, hey guys, great show. Who are the Cardinals players you see getting moved by Bloom in the offseason? Whew. The honest answer is I don't know, but there's going to have to be at least a few. If I was to put together the most likely candidates for the Cardinals to be traded this offseason based upon nothing other than my own speculation, I would say the most likely candidates include, in no specific order, Alec Burleson, Brendan Donovan, Nolan Gorman, Lars Nootbaar, probably those 4. And then I'll throw Andre Pallante into the mix. I think you're looking at the lefty bats and maybe a starter this offseason.
Did I hear you say Burleson?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know if I'd have Burley on that list, but
he has
he's
value.
Fringe to where it could happen.
He has value. He's a contact first player, which is something that is kind of similar to many of their other guys. I think maybe JJ Weatherholt could be your 1-for-1 replacement with what Alec Burleson currently brings to the lineup for the Cardinals. 20 to 25 home run hitter is what you're hoping for. High average, decent on base. You hope Weatherholt maybe is a little bit higher. I think that you could extract some decent value there. My concern is, what do other teams view Burleson's position as? If they think he can be a corner outfielder, I think there's real value in Alec Burleson. If other teams view Burley as a first base DH type, though, I think we saw with Josh Naylor, there's just not much value in those kinds of players, even with club control. So that's where you could end up being in a spot where it makes more sense for them to maintain them or hold them onto this roster than it does to trade them, because you're not extracting a whole lot of value. I should probably mention it's possible one of Wilson Contreras or Sonny Gray this offseason as well.
Yeah, I was going to put Gray on that list. I don't know on Contreras if he's open to being moved, but again, it goes to the whole first base conversation. How do teams really value that? And as we've seen, first base has kind of become a devalued position, but he brings so much offense that I think somebody would take him. So I would put him on that list. I'm kind of 50-50 on Burley. I would get it if they did it, because I agree with everything that you said there. I think Donovan will be there and Nootbaar will be there. That would be the four that I would have on the list.
From the 314, guys, what about Jordan Walker? Would he be on that list? Let's take some time on the other side to talk about Jordan Walker, because he was back into the lineup yesterday. He had missed the previous 2 games, or he was, wasn't a part of the lineup the last 2 days based upon the manager's decision. Is he reverting back to old habits? Because lately the numbers have not looked good once again. We'll talk about that next here on BK and Ferrario.
101 ESPN has your chance to win a pair of free tickets to this year's Blues and Brews on Friday evening, September 19th at the Anheuser-Busch Brewery.
Spread Zone, where sports betting meets reckless optimism, questionable logic, and the occasional stroke of genius. With hosts Anthony Stalter, Tim McKernan, and Scott Rizzuto. Check out the latest from the Spread Zone at 101ESPN.com or the 101 mobile app. The Spread Zone is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. Make every moment more. We're right back to more of it. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Alongside T-Bone and Bradford on BK, it's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. So, T-Bone, we've talked a lot this season, as you could imagine, about Jordan Walker and his success, or at times lack thereof. He went through that 2-week stretch where we were all really wanting to buy in. There were signs of progress. He was laying off of that slider low and away. I was like, all right, is this it? And Ollie Marmol came in and he mentioned, hey, there's some real buy-in right now on what Jordan Walker is doing and what this could mean for his development. T-Bone, he has continued to sing the praises of Jordan Walker in that regard. He was on with KMOX earlier this week, Ollie Marmol was, and said, hey, I believe in what we're doing here. I think that there's a lot more success in the changes that have been implemented into Jordan Walker's game. All right, I will trust him. When I look at it, though, the results are looking now very similar to what they were prior to that nice 2-week stretch. In his last, I don't know what it is, 9 games, he's 4 for 30. It's a 138 batting average. His OPS is below 400 in that stretch. It's looking kind of similar to what it was beforehand. In the last 6 games now, he has 11 strikeouts and 21 at-bats. It just doesn't look right again. And T-Bone, I'm rooting like hell for Jordan Walker to get this figured out. I remember when we were going through that stretch of time where it looked good. I was like, hey, the underlying numbers do not look good here. It suggests maybe he's getting pretty fortunate with his results. And so the results look good. The underlying stuff, the data still says, probably don't buy into this. Now, I will note, since Jordan Walker's return from AAA, he's been much better against the slider. Now, I don't know if this has changed in the last couple of days. I haven't looked up the data on that. But prior to going down to AAA / going on the IL, what do you think his swing and miss rate was against sliders, T-Bone?
Oh, it had to be high.
He saw 225 sliders. What do you think was his swing and miss rate against them?
I'm going to go 40%.
45%.
I thought 50 was aggressive, but I wasn't that far off.
Now, what do you think it is today, since his return from AAA?
It's a PK
He's seen
game.
103 pitches.
20%. I'll say he's cut it in half.
27%. So it went from 45% swing and miss rate against sliders to 27% swing and miss rate against sliders. That's a huge improvement. That is a tangible change in the way that Jordan Walker is approaching the slider. So that's good. There has to be more than just that I can point to, though. There's got to be more than just, okay, I'm laying off low and away. Sure, that's great. You're recognizing that pitch. Can you also then get the pitcher to come inside, and that's where you do your damage? You've got to make that adjustment pay off. And that's what we haven't seen enough of yet. T-Bone, what are you seeing from Walker? What do you make of the recent struggles once again?
Yeah, I think he's starting to revert back to his old self. I mean, you look at the game last night. Now, to your point on forcing pitchers into the zone, you look at his hit in last night's game against Alcantara. I think it was a 97-mile-an-hour sinker, four-seam, or something along those lines, up and in, and he's able to get the hands in and drill it into left field for a single. That's what we're talking about, right? You lay off the stuff away, you force the pitcher into the zone, and then you do your damage. But the problem is like last night watching him, it looks like he's starting to go chasing after the slider again, low and away. I just don't know that it's clicking for Jordan Walker. Sure, there is the small things that you can look at like that. He's not chasing on the slider, but he's going to have to start piecing this thing together for longer than a 10-game stretch like he just did recently. And then before he reverts back to himself, there's going to be struggles. There's going to be a 10-game stretch, even if Walker became the player that we thought he was going to be, where it will look like this. It happens for everybody at the big leagues. but he can't only have a 10-game sample of small success to where even the underlying numbers say, I don't know about this. One thing that is somewhat encouraging to where, like, if he can do what you're talking about with that slider, and he is able to say, okay, I am leaving that away, or even if I do go after it, I'm going to at least make some sort of contact and hopefully foul it off and force them into the zone. Jordan Walker this season, his expected slug against fastballs is 441. So there is still some signs of, hey, things look a little bit better when he sees the heater. The problem is he's going to have to figure out that slider. Otherwise, he is not going to ever see the fastball enough to even make up for it.
By the way, in the last week, his swing and miss rate against sliders is back up to 60%.
That checks out because it feels like he's been chasing more often.
Yep. So he made the change. It looked good. It was clearly something that was helping him, and you saw the numbers back that up, even if my nerdy stuff doesn't. The traditional stuff showed, okay, there's some damage here. And then now, over the last week, they're getting him to chase back outside of the zone. They don't need to come back inside. He's not doing the damage, and you've seen what the results are.
I like that you mentioned, though, Tanner, the fastball statistics, because I think one of the most common critiques here, one of the biggest problems for so many fans out in the audience is that you still have had so many more opportunities. There have been opportunities there to be able to be more aggressive and inflict damage earlier in counts. You don't see somebody who is really pressing that button, so to speak, really having that impulse to be more aggressive early in counts before he is perpetually falling behind. Now, obviously, in those cases, we've seen them pile up. When you talk about working yourself into those situations, and then inevitably guys are going to bury you with the slider. That's why I found it, BK, refreshing a couple of weeks ago when BT was here in studio. And after that extended rehab assignment, you saw different signs. And from a technique standpoint, he also was in here and he pointed out, hey, hand placement a bit different. Overall approach is different. But now, to use your word, Tanner, we're back to reverting to the same old habits. And I'm not sure how that just flipped on a switch, on a whim, once again.
Yeah, the crazy thing is he's basically been the same hitter this year that he was last. Mm-hmm. You just look at the numbers. He hit 205 last year. He's hitting 225 this year. He got on base 25% of the time last year. He's getting on base 28% of the time this year. He got a 365 slug last year, 321 slug this year. Overall OPS, 620 to 610. Based upon the way that the league is this year, offense is a bit down compared to what it was a year ago. It's the exact same OPS plus. He's 29% above or below league average each of the last two seasons. So they keep making these changes. They keep trying to see, will this work? Will that work? What is going to be the thing that unlocks the potential of Jordan Walker? And I'm still a believer in Jordan Walker. I'm throwing things now because of how frustrating this has all been. I'm still a believer in part because of what you said, T-Bone. Like, when you see it look right, dude, he does damage on the baseball. He hits it as hard as anybody in the league. It's just not, he doesn't connect enough to be able to make that damage worthwhile when he's swinging and missing as often as any other player. He's striking out as often as almost any other player in baseball. He's got to get that stuff figured out first for anything else to matter. And, man, I'm still a believer. I do not think they should trade him this offseason. You're doing so at the absolute low point. You're getting almost no value at this point in time. I just want to see him succeed, man. And I also wish they would play him more often. I really do. I think that the whole him not getting regular playing time, I wonder if that's messing with Jordan Walker. I believe in Ollie Marmol's plan in general, but the idea that he missed back-to-back games, I just think that's silly. In favor of Nathan Church, come on, dude. What are we doing here? Nathan Church is not a runway player. He's not. Even if you want to find out what he can be for him to be on your 40-man roster this offseason, don't do so at the expense of Jordan Walker. I like Ollie. I think Ollie's a really good manager. I think he's done a good job here. I think that some of the criticism of him is unfair and unjustified. This is a critique that I think is fair. I would tell Ollie the same thing. I don't understand the handling of Jordan Walker at times. And right now, this is one of those times where I don't think that the handling of him is fair.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Because Nathan Church, even if we had the conversation yesterday, to me, I think he can work his way into, at minimum, a competition with Victor Scott for the center field job. He is not a runway player because he's got 6 years of control. You don't need answers. You needed to find out, is he worth being on the 40-man? But, again, to me, that's not even that big a deal. You could carry him on the 40-man in the next year and eventually decide just to move on. Walker is a guy to where maybe it's not this is the final opportunity for Jordan Walker, but his time in St. Louis is quickly coming towards a end here potentially. And what I mean by that is, okay, maybe you go into 2026 and still say we're going to try this with Jordan Walker. But if it looks like this again for the first 2 months of 2026, there will be real conversations about what to do with him because he's not going to get runway for 6 years to try and figure this out. The Cardinals are going to have to start making decisions on him once he gets to the arbitration process.
I was about to say the other thing, next year's his last option year.
Yeah.
He can't go down anymore after next year. So, I mean, there's going to be a point in time where he becomes for you what, Mariners outfielder that got traded to the Atlanta Braves. Why am I blanking on his name right now?
Oh, Kelenic?
Yeah. He becomes for you what Kelenic was for the Seattle Mariners. Eventually, you have to say, it didn't work. Didn't work here. Hey, go elsewhere. See if you can unlock anything there. It just never worked for Kelenic. He ended up, went to a place where they thought maybe we can extract some kind of value here. Didn't have it. He was not the same player anymore. I hope that's not what it becomes for Jordan Walker. I hope he can find the thing that unlocks his full potential. Maybe it happens at some point down the stretch. Maybe it happens in the offseason and we see it by spring training and early next season. But man, it's disappointing when you finally see signs of life in his bat and it reverts back to where it is right now. Coming up in 15 minutes, is baseball going to move away from 162 games? And do people care if they do? T-Bone certainly does. He'll tell you why in 15 minutes. NFL Quick Hitters is next here on 101 ESPN.
You can now listen to 101 ESPN on demand. Get caught up on all our shows and podcasts at 101ESPN.com or on the 101 mobile app. 101 ESPN podcasts are presented by the Schaefer Door Company.
.101 ESPN has your chance to win a free pair of passes to Holiday World and Splash and Safari. Friday Night Live is back this Friday night at Holiday World and Splash and Safari. Find more details and find that chance to win a pair of free passes right now at 101ESPN.com or your 101 mobile app.
This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
I'm going to be really annoyed this year watching football, aren't I, T-Bone?
Yeah, probably.
I just spent the last 2 minutes watching a video of Kyle Brandt tell me about how Lamar Jackson is better than Patrick Mahomes right now. And how if you have Mahomes over Lamar Jackson, it's purely the same argument that people had of Eli Manning being the best quarterback in the league. That was a real thing that Kyle Brandt said on NFL Network. Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback in the league right now, just as Eli Manning was the best quarterback in the NFL in 2007 or in 2011. Apparently, that's the equivalency that we're making today. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I think this is a really big year for Patrick Mahomes. He needs to produce. Otherwise, if you want to make a statement that Burrow is playing the position better right now, or that Josh Allen is playing the position better right now than Patrick Mahomes, we can have that argument. We can have that discussion. I think it's fair. Lamar Jackson over Patrick Mahomes is bat bleep crazy. There's no way that I'm listening to that conversation until Lamar does something in the postseason. Lamar's special. He's unique. He's a hell of a lot of fun to watch. And his regular season numbers are up there with the best that I've ever seen. But until he does something in the playoffs, nah, man. Not happening. Not
Other than being sub 500, yeah.
All right. Apologies.
You okay over there?
Thanks for allowing me to have that moment. So earlier today, I checked out ESPN.com, and I really like Ben Solak. He does really excellent work. He put out his NFL watchability rankings. So this is purely on like, hey, I'm watching Red Zone on a Sunday, and Team X flashes across the screen. They're in the red zone now. Who are the teams that you most want to watch, basically, when they are on the television screen this year? Or it's a Monday Night Football game. I get excited when I have the opportunity to watch X, Y, or Z. Have you seen this yet, T-Bone?
I did, yes.
Bradford, have you seen this yet?
Actually, no. Hold me in suspense.
Who do you think, I'll give you 3 guesses, who do you think is the number 1 team for watchability based upon this list from Ben Solak? It includes big plays, close games, star players, and just cool stuff. That's a real criteria, according to Ben Solak. I love it.
Top of the list. Cincinnati?
No, Cincinnati
They're
is
so in vogue.
Number 4 on this list of most watchable teams in the NFL.
Their defense is so bad it drags them down.
Yeah.
Offense runs everything, baby.
What do you
Any other guesses? Give you 2
Baltimore.
more. Baltimore is high on this list. They're number 2.
I agree with that one.
Yeah, they're fun. Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson alone would put you pretty high on my list.
Yeah.
Rather than Detroit this coming season, I'll say Buffalo. Everybody loves Allen.
Detroit was 3.
Oh.
Buffalo is lower on this list than you might expect. They're at number 11.
That surprises me immensely.
Number 1 most watchable team in the NFL for 2025, according to Ben Solak of ESPN.com, is the Washington Commanders.
Oh, boy.
He said the following: the Commanders are the perfect team to watch last season. 12 of their games ended with an 8-point margin, more than all but 3 other teams in the NFL. In the fourth quarter, they had 19 different scoring drives and surrendered 20 scoring drives. A big part of that is they played really fast under Cliff Kingsbury, which is fun as hell to watch. I also enjoyed rooting for them. It's been a really tough couple of decades for Washington fans, and the team got a huge likability boost in the Adam Peters, Dan Quinn, Jaden Daniels era. I want to see them succeed. So I could see that. Number 1 seems a little high to me, but the Commanders are a team that I'm looking forward to watching this year with Deebo Samuel, some of the changes they've made.
Yeah, I would have them like fringe top 5. I don't know why, but for me, they just don't excite me. Last year, they did.
Fringe.
To what he said last year, they were excited, especially when Daniels kind of burst onto the scene. This year, I don't know. Maybe it's just because I'm not expecting Deebo to be good again, that it kind of drives down what I view as their watchability index. And outside of that, their defense I don't think is all that great to where it kind of drags it down for me. I think Baltimore would be my clear number 1. Detroit, my clear number 2.
All right, outside of the top 5, Washington, Baltimore, Detroit, Cincinnati, and Philadelphia, obviously. I mean, Philly's amazing. Outside of those top 5 teams, do you have a team that you're really excited about watching this season that you would put higher on this list maybe than what they did? T-Bone, is there anybody that immediately comes to mind for you in that regard? Team that you're very excited to watch that didn't crack the top 5 for Ben Solak?
I agree with what Bradford said on, I think it was your first or second guess. Mine would be the Bills. I think it just gets driven by Josh Allen because he's a freak when you watch him out there. He continues to produce when it's both regular season and then once you get into the postseason. The Bills are high on that list, and maybe it's just the fact that, I'm sick and tired of seeing your Chiefs in the Super Bowl. And if there's one team that I would circle as, would you please just get over the top? It would be the Buffalo Bills.
No bias here whatsoever, clearly. I am really excited to see this offense, the way in which it can hum to a greater degree in 25 in Kansas City. And I say that based on what we are getting, all of these reports, it seems as if BK, the giddy-up, is back for one Isaiah Pacheco. And let's be honest about it. We don't ultimately know how many games Rice is going to be able to suit up. We know that Brown already dealing with an affliction there as well. But I want to see more of Worthy. I want to see Kelsey in perhaps a swan song we don't really know, but more than anything else, Patrick Mahomes. That is pure box office in the purest sense of the word. And among the teams that maybe that are not the upper level playoff contenders, I am very enthusiastic about seeing whether it can translate in Chicago. I want to see in year one, yes, in that division, doesn't matter. If Ben Johnson can replicate any modicum of the massive success he enjoyed in the Motor City, that's going to be a fun team, if nothing else.
Any guesses on where Kansas City ranks on this list?
I saw the list, so I know. And I would agree with their placement.
Probably 12 to 15.
30.
30.
What? Oh, let's just walk out. Let me renew the bet, and now I'm just going to walk out now.
Here's my thing on the Chiefs. They are a boring good. They don't really do it in like a flashy, sexy way like they did when they had Tyreek Hill. And I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be kind of the same.
Is execution boring?
And the reason, yes, I find execution boring. I mean, it's the same conversation with Goldie, right? Goldie was like 100%. A really great player.
The Chiefs were one of the most boring teams in the NFL last year. They had zero explosive plays offensively. I think they were 30th in the NFL in explosive play rate offensively. I don't think that will be the case this year when Rashee Rice is healthy and on the field. The problem is I don't know how often he's going to be on the field this year because there's still the looming suspension. It seems to be kind of up in the air when that will start, how long it will be. But when Rashee Rice is out there, I think he's going to add a huge explosive element to the offense because he was doing that prior to going down with the injury a year ago. So him being back into the lineup, I think Xavier Worthy, we saw down the stretch, added an explosive element to the offense. And I expect Hollywood Brown to do something for the offense as well as the tertiary piece to the passing game. I've got a team that I wanted to throw into the mix. You're probably both going to hate it, and that's okay. They were 14th on Ben Solak's list. They would be in my top 5 to 10. I think the Dallas Cowboys are going to be fun as hell to watch this year.
Okay.
I don't know how great they're going to be, but I think they're going to be really fun. Dak Prescott, I consistently think gets underrated as a quarterback, and his weapons this year are super interesting. CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens. Hey, man, from a watchability perspective, George Pickens is fun as hell. Mm-hmm. You never know what's going to happen. He might fight somebody on the football field. He might throw the football at him. He might throw his helmet at somebody. I have no idea what's going to happen with that guy on the field.
And with a first-year head coach?
He might also make the most ridiculous one-handed grab you've ever seen at any point over the course of a game. So Pickens plus CeeDee Lamb, I think that's going to be a really interesting offense to watch. I think they're going to be incredibly pass-heavy, which should speed up the games. Like if you're playing daily fantasy this year, the Cowboys would be one of the teams that I'm targeting to stack up with their receivers and their quarterback, and because I don't think their defense is going to be particularly great this year either, despite the fact that they have one of the best players in the NFL in Micah Parsons, who's also incredibly fun to watch because that guy is a pterodactyl.
I don't dislike that pick whatsoever, and I'll go with another boring option here to kind of solidify the point. I think Ferguson is an upper-level tight end. I also am interested to see what Blue could do potentially as maybe a number one down the line in the running game, but let's just get this straight for a second. Defense is part of this equation, right, BK? Mm-hmm. So defense. All right, just a quick aside here, another reason as to why I would include Kansas City in the conversation, because identify many teams, many defenses that are actually more fun to watch than the Spags coached unit. I think that has to play in. I'm serious.
The Eagles would be up there for me.
All right, sure. But come on. Love some Karlaftis, Jones, Duffy, keep going.
I think
the Chiefs' defense might not be as good this year. I'm a little worried. Their defensive line has some question marks. Their cornerback situation has some injury stuff. Their safety situation is very concerning to me. I don't know what's happening right now with their defense. I would throw the Raiders into this mix, by the way.
I think they might be exciting.
I think the Raiders might be a super interesting team to watch. Brock Bowers is a record-setting rookie tight end who knows what the ceiling is going to be for him. He legitimately might already be the best tight end in the league. He's got that kind of potential in 2025. On the defensive side of the ball, Max Crosby, I mentioned Micah Parsons. Max Crosby is a maniac. Mm-hmm. That guy's insane, and I love watching him play. Now you put in a Pete Carroll system for Max Crosby, he could really thrive in that system. You've got Ashton Genty offensively as well. I think they might be super interesting this year, so I would have the Raiders pretty high on this list as well.
Yeah, I think them and the Cowboys would be like the back fillers for my top 10. Sure. Can I tell you, team, I think they're probably 15 is not like anything to like scuff at in their ranking. I don't have much interest to watch them, and I think they could be pretty good this year. The Broncos. I have no interest in that team.
Same.
Am I off? Because
No.
Bo Nix
So-
doesn't excite me. Dobbins doesn't excite me.
It's
Sutton
the
and Mims.
We're talking about defense. If you like watching defense, the Broncos are going to be pretty watchable. But offensively, you mentioned how the Chiefs don't have a whole lot of explosive plays. You want to talk about an offense that lacks explosives? Let's talk about the Denver Broncos, whose running game was the least explosive in the NFL last year, and their answer to that was to add J.K. Dobbins, who has no explosiveness to his game at this point in his career. So I agree. I don't find them to be particularly watchable. They are the team to me that will be last year's Steelers, where they continue winning games and you get super annoyed by it and nobody wants to see them in the playoffs. And then there they are at 10-7, making it to the postseason, and everybody bets against them in week 1 of the postseason. So I think that is their destiny in 2025.
I think that's a great comp.
Before we get out of here, The Ringer did a ranking of the top defenses in the NFL heading into 2025. I always find this to be an extremely difficult exercise because defense fluctuates. It's the Major League Baseball relievers are the equivalent of NFL defenses. It changes so much year to year based on scheme, based on health, and based on how it all interacts, because the defensive line affects what you're doing at corners affect what you do at the defensive line, etc. The number 1 defense in the NFL, according to The Ringer, the Seattle Seahawks.
What?
Heading into this season. A big part of that is because of their coaching, but last year they had a very good defensive line with Byron Murphy and Leonard Williams. They have your guy, T-Bone, at corner.
He's a stud.
They have a very good defensive mind as their head coach now with Mike McDonald. Last year was his first year in the system. They had a bunch of linebacker issues. They seem to have fixed that, and now going into this year, they've got the system in place, and now it's about taking that next step. So number 1 is the Seattle Seahawks. The rest of the top 5, the Houston Texans, the Philadelphia Eagles, the Minnesota Vikings, and the Baltimore Ravens. They have the Broncos at 6 on this list.
I would have the Broncos in the top 5.
Same.
I find the Texans and the Seahawks placement on this list to be very interesting because those are 2 teams that I don't know what to do with heading into 2025. And if either of them is going to make the postseason, it will be because of this. It will be the formula that I presented just a little bit ago for the Denver Broncos.
Yeah, I agree with that. Because the Texans, I don't think of as a great defense, and they didn't stand out last year. Seattle, I could get
Texans were really good defensively last year.
I know, and I guess it just got slept on because they were such a mid team. Because Stroud took the step back, they dealt with all those injuries and just got in because they were in the South. Seattle, I can kind of get. Now, I wouldn't have them at 1, but they had a pretty solid defense last year, and you mentioned they addressed linebacker. I would put the Eagles in at number 1, and I would put the Denver Broncos at number 2. That would be my top 2, but you're right. Those 2 teams will have to be defense first if they're going to be playoff teams.
Yeah, I'm still elevating one of those old standbys, Baltimore as well, into that upper frame. Houston doesn't make a ton of sense to me in the most lofty realm because, especially in the first half last season, quite a few clunkers, even with D'Amico Ryans at the helm. And Seattle is a fascinating case study because I could legitimately see the Seahawks actually plummeting to the bottom of that division. Not even kidding.
You could. That division is one that any team could finish first and any team could finish third. The Cardinals are the team that I think will finish 4th. I don't see a ton of upside for them, but beyond that, the other 3 teams I could see finishing in any order this year. A lot of that depends on Matthew Stafford.
I was going to say,
whether or not he's healthy.
If you wanted to say the Rams could finish 4th, if Stafford's not healthy, that's totally in their range of outcomes.
That's fair. He's T-Bone. That's Bradford. I'm BK. It's BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Is baseball going to move away from 162 games? It sure sounds like that's in play. We'll tell you the latest next here on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN is powered by Kaufman Townsley St. Louis's injury lawyers. Call 314-500-5000.
We've got your chance to win a 4-pack of passes to Monster Jam. Saturday, September 20th at the Dome at America Center. Get ready to cheer, scream, and be amazed as massive Monster Jam trucks and world champion drivers take over St. Louis for the ultimate day packed with high-flying action and jaw-dropping stunts.
Get all the info and enter to win that free 4-pack of tickets for Monster Jam. Now at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app.
Start your day with the morning after on 101 ESPN. Get in the know first on everything St. Louis sports with Tim McKernan, Doug Vaughn, and Martin Kilcoy. Listen to TMA weekday mornings from 7 to 11 a.m. on 101 ESPN. The morning after is presented by Brown and Crouppen Law Firm. 101 ESPN Sports Center.
Mizzou makes room for two at QB. Good afternoon. It's Bradford Bruns. Your Sports Center update is presented by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Tigers head coach Eli Drinkwitz confirming yesterday that both Sam Horn and Bo Pribula will play in next week's season opener against Central Arkansas. Pribula transferred from Penn State, while Horn missed all of 2024 due to injury. Missouri then faces Kansas on September 6th. Baseball, Miami subduing St. Louis 6-2 behind Sandy Alcantara's stellar start. The former Cy Young winner struck out a season-high 9. Wilson Contreras did smash his 17th homer. Tonight, Sonny Gray's group visits Tampa Bay. The Sports Center update was powered by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Alongside T-Bone and Bradford, I'm BK. So Jason Stark might be joining the show here in the next week or so, and he had a really good piece earlier today over on The Athletic explaining why MLB expansion is actually potentially tied to the 162-game season going away. Allow me to explain. So T-Bone, he goes into this and basically says, hey, one of the things that baseball would like to do, especially on the player side of things, is add in more rest. And the only real way you can do that with their current schedule is to limit the number of games that are played. But players don't want to do that right now because a shortening of the schedule means a shortening of pay. Because if you go to a 154-game schedule, well, you're not getting paid for 162 games anymore. Now we're just going to drop your pay, your salary, by that percentage of whatever the season is dropped by. It's not a huge number, but it is a number that nobody wants to have happen to them, right? If I went up to you, T-Bone, today and said, hey, we're going to drop your salary 3% next year. You're probably not thrilled about it, right? You'd prefer to continue making what you're making. And most of the time, people would get like a 3% increase in pay just based upon like the cost of living increase year over year. So players aren't going to be in for that. So how is this tied to expansion? Well, he explains in this piece, expansion means a huge influx of revenue. It also means, as we've been talking about over the last couple of days, realignment for Major League Baseball. 4 divisions most likely, with 4 teams apiece. So each league would have 16 teams spread into 4 different divisions, 8 divisions in total for all of Major League Baseball. Okay, that's easy to do. Now here comes the math part of the equation. So T-Bone, what he says you could do is get it to 156 games. You go from 162 to 156. And the way you do that, 12 games each against the other 3 teams inside of your division. So that's a total of 36 games, 12 apiece against your divisional foes. 6 games versus the other 12 teams in your league. So if the Cardinals were in the NL Central, let's call it still, there would be 3 other divisions in the league. They would play each of those teams in their league that are not in their division 6 games each. That's 72 games in total. So we're up to 108 games thus far. The other 48 games would come from 3 apiece versus the 16 teams in the other league. It's very simple. It's very straightforward. You play the other league, every single team, 3 times. You play your division 12 times. And you play the other divisions in your own league 6 times. And what it amounts to is a 156-game season. T-Bone, all of this to me, I'm not a baseball traditionalist, so that this kind of stuff doesn't like infuriate me the way that it does. I know for some that are probably listening right now that are very tied to the 162-game schedule, Cardinals being in the NL Central, playing against these same 4 teams year after year after year. Many people were mad when they went to the more balanced schedule, much less something like this. How did this hit your ears when you first heard it?
Yeah, I don't know why, but I maybe it is because I'm a traditionalist, but yet I don't mind like realignment because I find it intriguing. I don't want to see them cut down the regular season. I still want to see 162 games played. And now, like how you do that, you know, maybe you just add a couple of extra games to your division opponents. So instead of playing them 12 times, maybe you play them 13, and maybe one or two teams you play 14 times to get up to that number. But I just don't want to change it from 162. I've always seen 162 games. I've always enjoyed the 162 game schedule. And I think the other thing for me, and like, I don't like saying this because it is kind of like it almost feels anti-player, and it's not meant to be that. I just don't like the idea of an off day every week during the baseball season. Because when I think about baseball, I think of what makes it so special is the grind of the full 162, playing 19 games in 19 days. It becomes a task of, okay, we've got to push our starter in a game even if he doesn't have his stuff, because we got to have our bullpen fresh because we're playing 17 more games in 17 days. When you have an off day every week, it just kind of loses the luster a little bit for me. Takes away a little bit of, I think, the management of how you have to handle your bullpen moving forward and all of that kind of stuff. So I don't really like the idea of cutting down from 162 to 156, even though it's a small number of just 6 games. It kind of frustrates me.
It does matter. It's 10 days of rest over the course of the season with those 6 games potentially is what they draw out in this piece. I like that. I prefer to see the best players at their best more often, and I think having these off days on Thursdays would allow for that. They've gone to this in minor league baseball. Like AAA, I think it's every Monday, if I'm not mistaken, that they're off, just league-wide. They have Mondays off, and so they play basically one team for an entire week, and then they just continuously go that way. Major League Baseball would be a little different in the way that they schedule it out, but maybe the Cardinals would have every Thursday off, as an example. I like that. I like that. I would even be in favor. They would never do this because the players wouldn't agree to it. But maybe like once a month, you get 2 days off over the course of 1 week because you played a doubleheader on a Saturday. So maybe you'd get like that Tuesday and Thursday off, or that Wednesday and Thursday off.
Go back
and then
to the old school traditional doubleheader like they used to do.
I would love to see that. Again, 70s. Baseball would not do that because the players wouldn't agree to it. They don't want the doubleheaders. But that's another way that you could add even more time off over the course of your regular season, is by playing more of those doubleheaders. But I like the idea of you being able to. I think more teams would be able to have a 5-man rotation in this scenario, which would be good for baseball because you have that off day, and that allows for the like respecting the day off kind of thing that the Cardinals did early on this season. I think it allows for pitchers potentially to stay healthier. It allows for fewer pitchers to have to go up and down over the course of the season. So you see the better arms. It means that you have fewer built-in off days for the star position players. So like if you go to see the Cardinals versus the Dodgers, there's less of a chance that you would see an off day for a Shohei Ohtani or Mookie Betts or whoever. Or if you go see the Cardinals versus the Yankees, there's less of a chance that both Aaron Judge and Wilson Contreras would be getting an off day on that day that you go see the game. So I think all of this is good for fans for the most part. And I'm also just not as tied to the idea of a 162 game season. I think overall the numbers mean less today than they did 5, 10, 15, 25 years ago because so many of them have changed. And then you had the steroid era, which changed the home run numbers. Pitching, it no longer matters if you get to 180 to 200 innings because nobody's doing it anymore anyways. So there are just fewer of those key numbers that have stood the test of time to where I don't have an issue with them cutting down the season a bit. And in fact, I would be in favor of it. I like what they're proposing right now with realignment. I think it would be good for baseball. I like what they're proposing with this balanced schedule over 156 games instead of 162. Man, I'm no Rob Manfred fan. I think he's got really good ideas in most of these areas. The rule changes have worked for the most part. I would say that most of his ideas on where baseball should be heading has worked. I don't like the way that they handled the Oakland situation. I thought that was messy and gross, and I hate the idea of a team getting ripped from its roots in a city that really cares about baseball, and I think that the owner did them dirty in Oakland. But a team being in Las Vegas has been a goal for the league for a really long time, and despite the way that they went about it, I think that was all horrible, but they have that team now heading to Las Vegas anyways. So I think overall, Manfred is starting to push this thing in the right direction.
Yeah, I think some of the stuff he's tried to push through has been smart for baseball. Like the pitch clock was smart. You know, I had some questions about like the pickoff limitations of 2 disengagements. It hadn't really impacted the game like I thought it would. realignment I'm okay with. I still just I'm drawing the line on 162 games is where you do not touch my schedule, Rob. Okay? I like my schedule. I like the grind of the full 162 and not having the banked in off day every single day.
Gator says on the YouTube chat, guys, if they play less, they should get paid less. So that's the other thing. I should mention this. With this, and this is really going to infuriate T-Bone, with the 156 game season, they would almost certainly expand the playoffs.
Yeah.
So the playoff revenue share would increase, which would offset the fewer games. So the players would still be paid accordingly. Their salary would probably, quote unquote, be less. But then with the playoff revenue share and everything, players would end up getting rising salaries because the revenues would increase overall for Major League Baseball. So yeah, it would probably be a moot point overall in terms of how much players are getting paid for 156 versus 162 within 3 to 5 years or whatever as the continuation of the revenues increase. So 4 teams in each division, 4 divisions per league, 156 games overall, and an expansion of the playoffs. My guess is either 7 or 8 teams in the postseason per league.
If I had to guess, owners will push for 8. Players will settle on 7, and that's where they will go.
Yeah.
It'll be like the NFL playoff format. Top seed gets a bye, best of 3 in the, can we call it wild card round?
If you did all of this and this is going to sound really anti-player, but and you added in a salary cap and a floor, man, baseball would be heading in the right direction. Suddenly, you would have this sport heading in the direction that I think fans in markets such as St. Louis would prefer. I think it would be good for the game long term if they went with all of these different things that they are currently trying to implement, all of which is associated with Rob Manfred, all of which would probably get him into the Hall of Fame one day. And I actually think that might be worthwhile to put him into the Hall of Fame for all of the things that he would have changed. That would have been the most change that we've seen in Major League Baseball in like 60 years.
Yeah, I'll see how long he holds this work stoppage up. Is that'll be where his legacy is really made. Is if there are games missed coming up in 2027. But yeah, I like it. If you add it in the cap, you know what? I'll sacrifice my 4 games for a salary cap. And can we also bring in the double hook rule?
That would be something that I'd be interested in as well.
Because now you're adding in the more strategy of, okay, pushing starters, trying to figure out when is the best time to lose my DH, and how do we want to do that? Like, you're not going to hit...
Or don't lose your DH, because I think if you keep him in for 6, you end up keeping your DH innings for the rest of the game.
If you go 6 or 5, whatever it is, then you end up keeping them. But then there's also the strategy of, do the Cardinals then give like their 3-hole hitter Wilson Contreras a DH day, or do they just give him a day off, or do you just play him at first base?
From the 618, why don't we just let everyone in the playoffs? It's ridiculous that a team as bad as the Cardinals is theoretically still in the playoff race. If you expand the playoffs even more, teams will race toward mediocrity. That is something that I do fear. I mentioned that whenever they expanded the playoffs to where they are today, it has not been as big of an issue as I expected. I do think you're seeing, because especially in the National League, maybe this is a bigger issue in the American League, but in the National League, I think you see so many teams that are really trying, and especially as you get into like Dodgers, Padres, Phillies, Mets, those 4 teams in particular, it's really hard if you're another team in the National League right now to get into the playoffs without really trying, because there's basically one spot that you're competing for beyond those teams, whether that be your division or for any other team in the National League East or West. It's that last wild card spot. So it has been less of an issue in the National League than I anticipated. In the American League, I think there's been a little bit more of that. But if you expanded it to include, so it would be 2 more teams, just for context. This year, the Royals and the Guardians would be in the American League. And in the National League, it would be the Reds and the Cardinals.
Yeah, we'd go up against the Brewers in round 1.
I do wonder what that would mean for the deadline.
Oh, I think it would drag down the deadline.
It would make it pretty tough for a team to really say, we're out of it.
Yeah.
Because even if you had expanded to this point, the Cardinals right now would be in, the Diamondbacks would be 1 game back, the Giants would be 1.5 games back, the Miami Marlins, who are currently 7.5 games back of the Mets, would be 2.5 games back of a playoff spot, while also 7 games below 500.
Ugh.
The Braves would be roughly the equivalent. So if you had expanded the playoffs to where we're talking about, T-Bone, you add 2 more playoff teams into the mix. The Braves would be as close to the playoffs as the Cardinals currently are.
Yeah.
Cardinals are 5 games back right now of the
Braves have Fetty in
current
their
playoff
rotation.
mix. The Braves would be 5 games back of the Cardinals if you increase the number of playoff teams to where we're talking about. So, yeah, I think one more team would be about the max that I'm willing to include. Baseball will probably fight for 2.
Yeah, if you went by, so I would just went back and looked at the standings on July 31st because I was curious. Okay, where would this be? You would have had 3 teams within 4 games of the Cardinals for the last playoff spot if you went to 8 teams. Now, if you did what you just said there where you do 7, now it gets a little bit more tricky. Like Arizona would have been 5.5 back, so they probably end up selling in that spot. You've got Miami that would have been 3.5 games back. That would be a fringe. So there probably would have been 2 teams that would have been 50-50. Yeah, they would be a fair amount of what the trade deadline will become if you decide to expand to 8 teams.
All of this is likely to be 5+ years away, so we're still a ways away from baseball going to these wholesale changes. But keep it on your radar. I think expansion is likely the first step. That is probably coming sooner rather than later. And then there would be realignment. They would add in an extra playoff team or 2. In the schedule, it sure seems like could be headed for a 156-game season instead of 162. All of those are tied to expansion. Expansion is the first domino that would have to drop before we get to anything else. With T-Bone and Bradford, I'm BK. Coming up next, time for the junk drawer here on 101 ESPN.
Saturday, college football is back on ESPN. Kansas and Fresno State. Pregame at 5. Kickoff at 5:30. The NCAA plays on 101 ESPN. giving you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Let's open it up. The junk drawer with BK and Ferrario.
Alongside T-Bone and Bradford, I'm BK. T-Bone, what do you have for us today in the junk drawer?
Guys, were you watching Leagues Cup last night?
I was watching UK edition Love is Blind last night.
Can't say that I was, Tanner.
Well, I wasn't either, but I saw this on Twitter, and it just reminded me of how wild things can be in the great sport of soccer. So last night, Inter Miami, of course, has Lionel Messi, and in the Leagues Cup, they're playing a team from La Liga, or not La Liga, from Mexico, and their head coach, and argues a call, and he gets the red card, so he's ejected from the ball game, right? So, in theory, you're thinking what Ollie does when he gets ejected. Leaves, goes down in the locker room, that's what you would expect. Well, in the 58th minute of the broadcast, they pan to the head coach sitting up in the stands above the team on his iPhone, talking, and he's very animate, and he's pointing, and he's yelling, and I'm thinking, man, who's he talking to? I thought, okay, maybe this is the version it kicked out. And then they pan to the assistant coach with his phone out and an AirPod in his ear as he's being communicated to by the head coach who has been ejected from the soccer game.
Well, that's illegal. You can't do that.
Yeah, I think he's going to be seeing a significant suspension from this. But boy,
this used to be a thing for baseball. Remember when we first got the Apple Watch?
Yeah.
There were some managers, I think Ned Yost was one of them, that got in big trouble because he was wearing an Apple Watch, and there was this belief that you could potentially be communicating with somebody else. There's been some talk of that being an issue for stealing signs,
I think
for
that's
example.
what Cora got busted for, I think.
Yeah, so there are these kinds of technological advantages that can exist within, whether it be a dugout or on the sideline, whatever. And sports are doing a lot to make sure that that doesn't exist in those scenarios. Unfortunately, it looks like it got through this time around.
Yeah, I just when I saw this, I was trying to imagine Descalso on the Cardinals bench with an AirPod in, communicating with Ollie Marmol, or maybe the best one of all time was Bobby Valentine getting ejected, the New York Mets manager, leaving, and then they come back and they pan the camera and he's put on a Mr. Red mustache to try and hide it. Boy. Managers not as creative as they used to be.
College football coaches frequently talk about wanting to, if need be, coaching right or helping to contribute from hospital beds due to medical situations, just taking up a spot there in the stands, posting up the stands. Why not?
I mean, we saw that with Hugh Freeze.
Hey.
Hugh Freeze coached from the hospital. He was overlooking the fields, and you saw him. He was in his hospital bed at the time. It's great. You love to see it. The ironic thing to me is you have so many for Major League Baseball, they've all got the tablets, or in the NFL, you see them on the sidelines. All of them have the tablets. That's immediately where they go once they get over to the sideline. So there's technology everywhere. It's just a matter of whether or not it's, possible to jailbreak them, which I'm sure no NFL team has ever done. Coming up in 15 minutes, time for Believe It or Not. You guys give us a scenario. We will tell you if we are believing it or not here on BK and Ferrario. But next, the Cardinals outfield needs to be the number one priority to get things back on track. We've got some numbers to back that up next here on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN has your chance to win a pair of tickets to the St. Louis Blues home opener against the Minnesota Wild on October 9th at Enterprise Center. Blues hockey is right around the corner, and single-game tickets for the 2025-26 season go on sale this Friday at 10 a.m. This upcoming Blues season is stacked with great matchups, can't-miss giveaways, and fan-favorite theme nights. Get more details and get entered to win a pair of free tickets for the Blues home opener now either at 101ESPN.com or on your 101 mobile app.
Let's go Blues!
Hey, it's BK, and it is time to unlock your inner champion. There is one place to do so. That place is Victory Men's Health. Check them out today. 4 great locations across the St. Louis area: O'Fallon, Illinois, O'Fallon, Missouri, Sunset Hills, and right down the street from where we are right now, Town and Country, Missouri as well. That is the location that I personally go to, but all 4 are fantastic. When you walk through the door, it's state of the art, man. This is not going to be like some of these other places that you go for low testosterone where you walk in, it's dimly lit, white walls, feels like you're in a hospital. That is not the vibe you're going to get when you walk through the door at Victory Men's Health. Check out what they have to offer at victorymenshealth.com. They can help you with erectile dysfunction, weight loss goals, low testosterone. They can check your levels over there, and they can tell you about their programs for vitamin infusions, supplement shops, red light therapy, cardiovascular testing. They've got it all available for you today, and it's a super easy process to book that first appointment right now. Go to victorymenshealth.com, put in your name, email, phone number, tell them BK with 101 ESPN sent you, and tell them what it means for you to unlock your inner champion. It's Victory Men's Health and victorymenshealth.com.
Trading your car at a dealership? Get serious. Your car is worth more and they want to pay you less. Get full retail value without the retail hassle at sellmycarstl.com. With a new convenient location on Manchester Road in Bowen, that's sellmycarstl.com.
WXOS HD1 East St. Louis 101 ESPN is driven by Brown and Crouppen Law Firm. You can now watch 101 ESPN live on our Air Alliance Team Studio Cams. Catch every show live on our YouTube channel or at 101ESPN.com. 101 ESPN Studio Cams.
Presented by the Air Alliance Team Heating and Cooling. Getting the job done quickly, correctly, 100% of the time.
Alongside T-Bone and Bradford on BK. So yesterday I was watching MLB Network out. T-Bone, first time I've done that. It's Thursday. I feel like that's pretty good ratio. I was watching MLB Network, and they were talking about the left field position. They put out their updated list of the top 10 left fielders in Major League Baseball. Bradford, don't worry about this audio. I can explain it. They're basically saying, hey, the left field's a strong position again. Lars Nootbaar was not represented among the top 10 left fielders in baseball, as you can probably assume. And the Cardinals overall, when you look at what they have had in the outfield, man, this has been a struggle for them. If you look over the past 3 seasons now, the Cardinals outfielders are 25th in offensive production, OPS plus. If you look at them, and I know people don't like it, but wins above replacement, that includes both your offense and your defense, what you're contributing to your club. They're 24th in outfield contributions based upon their wins above replacement over the past 3 seasons. To put that in context, the following teams are the only ones that are below you: San Francisco, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Colorado, Kansas City, Chicago.
It's not a great list.
It's not ideal. T-Bone, if the Cardinals are going to get this thing back on track, the number one place where that has to begin is with their outfield. When they were good, you could look to the outfield and say, we've got a star out there, or we've got some significantly above league average contributors. that are contributing in our outfields right now. And yet, if you look back to 2016, these are the best offensive contributors that have primarily played the outfield for the Cardinals. This is dating back to 2016, so effectively the post-Matt Holliday era for the Cardinals, for the most part, like post his prime. Tommy Pham is 23% above league average in a Cardinals uniform. Jose Martinez, 22% above league average in a Cardinals uniform. And then it's Lars Nootbaar, Tyler O'Neill, Marcell Ozuna, Alec Burleson, Dexter Fowler, Harrison Bader. If you go by WAR, which is their overall contributions, not just what they did offensively, it's Harrison Bader, Lars Nootbaar, Tyler O'Neill as your top 3 outfielders since 2016. This has been almost a decade, T-Bone, and the top 3 are Bader, who I think most fans didn't want to see back in a Cardinals uniform when I gave that suggestion earlier this year, Newt, and Tyler O'Neill. This is where they've got to fix it. It's been a revolving door of players for a decade. It is time for them to settle on who their outfield combination is going to be. And you look at it right now, dude, it's as unsettled as it's ever been. Think about all of the options that they currently have for them in the outfield on any given day for right now, much less what they could have out there going into next season. I don't know how you do it, but the first thing that needs to get fixed for the Cardinals to get back on track offensively, defensively, just overall as a team, they have got to find some stabilization in the outfield.
Yeah. I mean, looking at that list tells you all of it. And again, to your point on, like, when you think back to when the Cardinals were good, like, they had stars roaming around the outfield. Jim Edmonds roaming center field, Larry Walker when they acquired him. Even the further down you get, like Lance Berkman, Carlos Beltran, Matt Holliday, Ryan Ludwig for a year had that incredible season in, I think it was 2009, if I remember correctly. And, like, none of these guys on this list are those guys. They're all really nice pieces, right? It's the same conversation we get back to.
Sure. They're the third outfielder on those teams that you were mentioning.
Exactly. They are always really good pieces that every team would love to have when they need one outfielder, like a Bader, as we've seen. And we talked about it at the time when he brought up his name. It's clear baseball still values Harrison Bader. He just got traded again at the trade deadline for like the 3rd year in a row. So teams value Harrison Bader and what he brings to the table, but you can't have him be like the guy that spearheads leading the charge for your outfield like the Cardinals did at the time. And the tough part for them is it feels like every 2 years we go through where, hey, we've finally got the outfield of the future. I remember it was, I think, Piscotty, Pham, and Bader, I think, was the group, if I remember correctly, in like 2016, the first year you start this. And then like 2 years in, it was, okay, well, now we've got to reshuffle the deck again. 2 years in again, here they go again, reshuffling it. And to your point, I mean,
and it's been necessary. They didn't have options that were stabilizing forces. So this isn't me saying like they've given up on guys too early. It's they don't have true answers at the position, which is a huge problem.
They don't evaluate the outfield market or their outfielders appropriately. You know, they held on to Tyler O'Neill for so long, and they ended up being right once out of his 5 seasons here in St. Louis. Carlson, they had the one good year, and then injuries kind of took it away from him. So, yeah, this is the spot they have to figure out. But, man, like trying to figure out how they're going to do this, it feels like almost the conversation, this can be fixed quicker than their pitching issue, but it is hard to see where their answers are going to come from if they are hoping to do it internally. Because I think the answers that you've gotten this year is, okay, Nootbaar, there's not much more ceiling to his game. He's kind of in the conversation of Harrison Bader, where he's a nice piece to have, but he's not an elite bat. He's a 10% above league average, fine piece to have, and that's most of your pieces. Victor Scott's a Gold Glove center fielder. How valuable is that, though, if he's 25% below league average offensively?
Yeah, the current Cardinals outfielders, or what they've had really over the last decade, are more in line with Alan Craig, Colby Rasmus, John Jay, those types of players, as opposed to Matt Holliday, Jim Edmonds, Carlos Beltran, Ryan Ludwig for that season. Like those guys are a little different than what you have had patrolling the outfield for almost a decade now. We did get this question over on YouTube from Bill Marsh. BK, what doesn't need to be fixed? Outfield, pitching, catching, first base. This team is a train wreck right now. So I don't know that catching necessarily needs to be fixed. I would like to see them upgrade at the position, but I think you can live with, and many teams have lived with, a defense-first catcher. But when you do that, and as we've mentioned, you are getting most of your value, extracting most of your value at shortstop and in center field via the defense as well. You want to be strong up the middle defensively. I'm cool with that. It puts more pressure on what you're getting offensively from the corners. You need more offensively from first, third, into the corner outfield positions. They're fine at first base. They have not been good enough at third base this season. And for years now, they have lacked with their corner outfield offensive contributors. So that's what they need to get. The pitching side of things, yeah. Pitching plus corner outfield, if they could fix those two things and they changed nothing else about the current roster setup, you'd be in a pretty good spot, man. Mm-hmm. If you found your Matt Holliday or Jim Edmonds or J.D. Drew or Carlos Beltran or Ryan Ludwig, you find 2 players from that list, and then you add in, the pitching depth that they've been lacking for 6 years now, you're a legit threat in the NL Central again. You're a playoff team, and we could talk about what happens once you get in, but you're at least in that conversation once again. It just, finding those players is really difficult.
Yeah.
It's not an easy thing to accomplish, and as you look at where the Cardinals stand right now, it's hard to imagine how they acquire that player unless they get really fortunate with one of the trades.
Yeah, because I was going to say, it is hard to find that player. It's even harder when you're cutting payroll and trying to figure things out. And maybe it is they acquire an outfielder and a traded this offseason, but unless you're willing to go out there and spend the money to go fix your problem, it's going to be a process because they don't have anything coming in their system that's an outfielder. You can look at catching that Texter mentioned. There's some intrigue in their catching pipeline. I don't know if it'll work out or not, but you've got Jimmy Crooks that's at AAA, Bernal that's at AA that they seem to like, is it Rodriguez kid that's in low A that's just trying to cover off the baseball. They've got pieces that are there. We'll see if it works out. Who's the outfielder in the minor leagues that you're looking at going, okay, maybe that guy could be a big leaguer that works out here? Chase Davis, you hope, but he's taking a long time to develop as a first-round pick.
I don't think they have anybody in the minor leagues right now that profiles as an outfielder that is truly going to change what we're talking about. They don't profile to be the players that we're mentioning. Could they become the next Lars Nootbaar? Sure, yeah, you could have guys that are currently in the system that are solid, minor contributors at the major league level. You could see that. I don't think anybody is currently anticipating a current minor leaguer in the system to be a stud, and that's ultimately what they need in the outfield. Somebody on the text line, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 314. Why do you talk all about the offense out of the outfield? Doesn't defense matter? Sure, defense absolutely matters. That should be something that is taken into account in these wins above replacement numbers, and they don't have a high level of wins above replacement from the outfield. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 314. Doesn't a lot of this have to do with Walker not becoming what he was expected to be? Yes. Just as it was Dylan Carlson not being what he was expected to be, or Tyler O'Neill not becoming what he was expected to be, or the obviously unfortunate circumstances that took place with Stephen Piscotty. Piscotty was kind of becoming the player that we're talking about. Maybe not a superstar, but a high-level contributor offensively and a solid defender for the Cardinals. And then his mom was diagnosed with ALS. They send him to Oakland, and the career, takes a different path, which is understandable given what his personal circumstances were. But, yeah, they've missed on outfielders left and right. Ozuna. They traded for Ozuna to be the player that we're talking about.
Yeah.
And he didn't become that here. He eventually needed a positional change, go to DH, and then go to Atlanta to become the player that they traded for him to be. But, yeah, they've missed. They've missed on these guys. Hell, you can go all the way back to 2015. That's really the original sin on this. They trade to acquire Jason Hayward. He has a very good season here, but not great. But then he never reaches the offensive potential that people thought he had in him, basically in the same way that Walker has, by the way, just on the ground too often to become a star offensive contributor. So you miss there. You miss on Marcell Ozuna. You miss on Bader, O'Neill, Grichuk, Piscotty, different, but, was going to be one of these guys as well and a high-level draft pick as well. You miss on Walker. You miss on Carlson. And you're seeing the trend here. It's been a lot of players that they've just whiffed on. They have not become what they were expected to be here. And then the Tavares situation as well, which is tragic. But, yeah, that's another piece of this puzzle as well.
Yeah, I would put the original one at Ozuna. I think Hayward ended up being fine. I don't know if he reached the superstar level, but they ended up getting – reason I wouldn't pinpoint that as the beginning of the original is they didn't give him the contract that the Cubs did, and they would have been really stuck with a bad contract in that case.
That's what I'm saying, though. They missed on the evaluation because they wanted him to stay here.
Okay, that's fair.
Their goal was for them to trade for Jason Hayward and then for him to be here for the next, close to a decade And if you look at what he did with Chicago, he was a 700 OPS. He was worse offensively than some of the guys that we've mentioned. And you would have been stuck fitting the bill for that, which probably means they don't end up trading for Paul Goldschmidt, because that he was in line salary-wise with what Paul Goldschmidt was going to make here. So that would have been an absolute disaster. They were lucky they didn't get stuck with the bill.
Yeah, and me and Alex talked about this last week. You know, their process in the Ozuna move was right. Absolutely. It was just the result just didn't end up working out for them. But yeah, I don't knock them for their process in trying to acquire Ozuna. It was the right idea of what they wanted to add to their lineup at the time. But yeah, your point on their evaluation of outfielders, like, would have been a miss if they extended Jason Hayward. They ended up being wrong about what Ozuna was going to become. And then you just look at their evaluation, even in like recent years in terms of what they sent away, right? Like, look at Randy Arozarena.
That's a great point.
They got that one wrong. They said, you know, we're going to go defense first. Again, where I've been critical of them being too defensive oriented, and said, we're going to move away from him and we're going to go acquire a left-handed starter that they felt like they needed in Matthew Liberatore. That's the other one that they go back to. And that's the one that really set things in motion of, okay, we've got to get gun shy on our trades, because we missed when we had traded for the Stars in Marcell Ozuna, and we missed by sending away a Randy Arozarena.
Think about how much changes if they just had Randy Arozarena over the last 6 years. I mean, he is exactly the player that we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Consistently a 20 home run, 20 stolen base player, 25% above league average offensively in the outfield. Plays fine defense. He's solid out there. He's good enough. And you just plop him into right field every year. You never worry about it. It's just a spot that you don't have to think about going into any given season. That's the exact kind of player that this team has been missing since they traded him to Tampa Bay. So, yeah, it's whiffing on the players that you kept and them not becoming what you hoped. It's whiffing on Randy Arozarena, who was dealt. I don't consider Adolis Garcia to be in that same thing. I
didn't bring him up because, like, the Rangers DFA'd him too, and anybody could have had him.
I would say that's a little bit different. But then also, like, the trades that you made, the players either didn't become what they were supposed to be, or you dodged the bullet with Jason Hayward only being here for the year. It's just been a constant revolving door of misses by the Cardinals, and it's literally lasted a decade, going all the way back to really 2016, that they've had these issues in the outfield, and they still do not have any certainty out there to this day. Like, as of today, I feel no more certain on the outfield than I did 5 years ago, which is a crazy thing to be able to say for this organization, given how many different players they've tried to get opportunities. All right, coming up in 15 minutes, we've got our Power Conference superlatives entering 2025. And there's really only 2 power conferences at this point in time. So we'll get into those coming up at 1:30. Believe it or not, it's next here on 101 ESPN.
Get social with 101 ESPN. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, X, Threads, Blue Sky, and YouTube at 101 ESPN.
batting leadoff, your local expert for all things basement tea, Woods Basement Systems. Today is game day for the Birds, and you know what's worse than a cracked bat? A crack in your foundation. You man here called Woods Basement Systems, the experts to fix that wall crack or wet basement. Don't let that foundation wall crack ruin your basement like a cracked bat on a nice swing. Fix that crack so you can focus on cheering for the Birds. Get Woods and get a free estimate. They're the highest rated, most reviewed contractor for all things basement tea. Go to getwoods.com.
This is exactly where you want to be listening to us. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
You ready, Bradford?
Let's do it.
Believe it or not, I'm walking on air. I never thought I could feel so
Free,
Flying away on a wing and a prayer.
who could it be?
Believe it or not, it's just me.
I need Bradford
so
singing
Bradford
this in
in
my life
every
more
Thursday.
often. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Believe It or Not. By the way, in our last segment, we were talking a lot about the Cardinals outfield situation, how they rank compared to other teams, how it's a problem for them. And I brought up Randy Arozarena, who's had 5 consecutive seasons of at least 20 home runs and 20 stolen bases. First of all, that's a remarkable accomplishment, to have that kind of consistency in the power and speed department. Now, he's not a perfect player. He's also been caught stealing 10, 12, 10, 10, and 3 times this year.
He led the league in caught stealing back-to-back years.
Yeah, so he's not perfect, but he tries, and there's some value in that. There has only been one Cardinal in franchise history that had multiple 20 home run, 20 stolen base seasons. They've never had a player have 5 consecutive seasons with 20 home runs and 20 stolen bases. The only player to do it more than once in his career was Ray Langford. He did do it 5 times in his career, but only 4 consecutively. So Randy Arozarena, the one that got away in 100 different ways. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. If you guys have a scenario for Believe It or Not, we will tell you if we are believing it or not here on BK and Ferrario. All right, T-Bone, let's start out with this. Believe it or not, Jordan Walker will be in the Cardinals' starting outfield on opening day of next year. Speaking of the outfield issues.
So I'll say Scott's in center, Burley's or Herrera's left. Newbar, I don't think will be here. I will say believe it. I don't feel great about that answer, but I think they will give him potentially one more shot at runway in 2026. So, yes, believe it.
Totally agree with you because you mentioned opening day next season. Now, who knows what's going to transpire thereafter? Heck, we may be having the exact same conversation when May rolls around, but I do believe there will be one long runaway to commence 2026.
I will say not. I will say not believing it in 2026 on opening day. I think he's still here, but I don't think he's in the starting outfield because I think you look at it, man, there's just so many other options that they would potentially rather have in the outfield next year. I think Brendan Donovan could be an option. Nootbaar could be an option. Burleson could be an option. Ivan Herrera could be an option for them next year as well. I've just mentioned 4 names, all for corner outfield spots. I think there's just too much pushing Jordan Walker out of that starting lineup for opening day. I'll say not believing it. T-Bone?
Guys, believe it or not, Alec Burleson's bat, not his body of work, but his bat, can become what Randy Arozarena has been over the last 5 years.
I'll believe it. I think they're pretty similar in terms of how they go about it offensively. Now, defensively, there's a slight difference in the two.
Burley could steal 20.
I would say
it's about willpower.
When I see Josh Naylor stealing 20 bags this year, I think maybe that's at least in play. I feel like that's more about effort than anything else at this point in Major League Baseball, given the change in the rules and all of that. But yeah, I don't think he's going to be the full offensive profile that you're seeing from Randy Arozarena, an overall player profile. But yeah, he could have that kind of offense, 20% above league average. I think that's in play.
Yeah, I will absolutely roll with that. When you're talking about Arozarena, you're talking about really a pretty unmatched combination as far as potential pop and the speed goes. He has ramped it up that much more in 2025. But for longevity, for over the long haul, Burleson has demonstrated to me, guys, more than just a full season now of sample size. Would you ultimately like to see him do more consistently against left-handed pitching? Yes, but by the same token, I'm not willing to give up in that department either. I absolutely will roll with this. Yeah.
By the way, when you look at Randy Arozarena, one of the key differences is the walk rate.
Yeah.
Randy is a much lower batting average guy than Alec Burleson, but he has a much higher walk rate, so he just reaches base differently. But overall, it's a 330 to 340 on base, which I think is pretty similar to what I would expect out of Alec Burleson. T-Bone?
Yeah, I would believe this too. I think he can become this. The profile will be maybe a little bit different, but 20% above league average is what I was looking for there. Is, do you believe he can be that for the next 5 seasons? My answer would be yes.
All right, to the gridiron we go, guys. Travis Hunter did not participate in today's joint practice with Miami. He won't play in Saturday's exhibition finale, just as he sat out Jacksonville's second preseason game. Believe it or not, we and Hunter himself underestimated the physical toll of playing both ways at this level, and Hunter will get very few Rookie of the Year votes.
Believe it. I think he might end up getting the Rookie of the Year votes, but the first part of that I absolutely believe. I think the underestimated part of this is, man, it's really hard to play corner, and it's really hard to play receiver, and it's even harder to play both. From a cardio perspective, that's difficult, but from your body gets beat up, dude. Like, these guys in the NFL are a different kind of good, a different kind of physical, a different kind of fast than what you went up against in the Big 12 against whoever was on Colorado's schedule. The other thing is, you've got 17 games that you got to do this for, man. You had 12 at the collegiate level. You've got 17 now plus the playoffs potentially. So I think that's what Davante Adams was trying to say a couple of weeks ago when he made his comments, and he got a lot of pushback from it where people were like, Travis Hunter could do it, blah, blah, blah. Maybe he's one of one. That's possible. Nobody thought that Shohei Ohtani would be able to do what he's done. But the physical toll for a guy that's 185 pounds, I do think that's what gets most underrated in this scenario.
Yeah, I will believe the first part of this. I still think he'll get Rookie of the Year votes because I think you're probably going to see at halfway point this year, they will move him to one position. I don't think he's doing the full year two-way. It's just too hard. BK described it perfectly. In the NFL, you are not going against boys, you're going against men. And those guys are bigger, stronger, faster. And on top of 17 games, you only get one bye in the 17-game schedule. College football, you get 2 byes in a 12-game schedule before you maybe play in a playoff or a bowl game. But yeah, I would believe this. I don't think he's going to be a two-way player for the long run. I don't think he's going to survive this year doing it.
Yeah, Hunter has long characterized himself as being that one-of-one guy, basically having unrelenting stamina, endurance, so forth. You mentioned the conference. I don't care about the way in which the game is more spread out in this day and age. I don't care about maybe the lack of outright physicality from a couple of decades ago. Charles Woodson was of a similar ilk. I'm not saying he was that guy in college. Didn't work out whatsoever. I'm skeptical.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service X line for Believe It or Not. You guys give us a scenario. We will tell you if we are believing it or not here on 101 ESPN. From the 618, guys, believe it or not, Ollie Marmol will be the manager of the Cardinals next year. I'm believing it. I do think he will be back as the manager of the Cardinals in 2026, and I think he will do so with a 2-year extension.
I will believe it as well. I think he'll be back in 2026. There seems to be nothing that would signal that he would be out. He hasn't lost the locker room, even though they sold off at the end of July. Now, maybe that can change in the final month, but I don't expect that. I've not heard any rumblings that Heim's not been happy with what Ollie Marmol's done. I mean, he's done everything management's asked. Hey, we need runway, and do it while you've got 11 players for 9 positions. So I'll believe this. I think he's back in 2026, and Beacon's probably right. He probably will get a contract extension.
Believe it as well, and you really can't afford, no pun intended there, to have him set up positioned as a lame duck manager. He's going to get that at least over the span of 2 years, and if you are truly, Tanner, to use your terminology from the last couple of days, embracing that retool, that rebuild, tearing it down potentially to the studs, you're not going to deviate from Ollie, who has that clubhouse.
From the 618, believe it or not, we will see Travion Henderson win NFL Rookie of the Year this year, Offensive Rookie of the Year this year. I'll say not. I've got Ashton Genty. He's the betting favorite, and I would probably take him as the rookie of the year personally.
Yeah, I would say not believe this as well. I would say Genty, if Travis Hunter is able to play two-way, then he's going to be the guy that will get the votes for Rookie of the Year.
That won't contribute, though, because it'll only be his offensive contributions, because there's an offensive and a defensive Rookie of the Year, so the two-way thing, I would assume, will not be taken into account.
Yeah, sorry, I forgot. They do offense and defense Rookie of the Year. But if he does have a good offensive year, like wide receiver, potentially going to put up big numbers, I will say not. I would have Henderson at like third on my list.
I will take, this is I would assume, bold prediction here. I think Tet McMillan has a better offensive season this year than Travis Hunter by the numbers. Travis Hunter may be more impressive when you watch, but I think Tet McMillan will have better numbers offensively this year than Travis Hunter.
And he's with who? Carolina?
Mm-hmm.
Bryce Young continuing to make those strides.
I don't think Travis Hunter is going to be the number one receiver on his own team. I think that's going to be Brian Thomas Jr. I think he showed enough last year that he's the guy. Travis Hunter will be the number two. And I think Tet McMillan will be the clear and obvious number one receiver for Carolina. So he just gets more targets.
I like Henderson. I think everybody saw him on display in the national title game. He is a home run hitter. We've witnessed that in the exhibition season as well. But I'm not ready to close the door on Stevenson still being the guy, the number one guy in the Pats backfield. I think touches, definitely, that will become an issue there. Under the radar suspect or nominee here for Rookie of the Year, at least working his way into the conversation. You love those Green Bay Packers, BK. Watch out for Matthew Golden, another wideout. I'm telling you.
He's got 30-1 odds right now if you want to bet that over on the MGM app. So
that is a sleeper pick.
From the 314, believe it or not, anyone who actually puts Thousand Island dressing on the salad and eats it is a sociopath.
Oh, believe that.
I think Thousand Island dressing in general is disgusting, so yeah, believe it.
Yeah, I think it only belongs on like your Big Mac burger. Other than that, like if you're eating it for anything else, yeah, you probably are a psychopath.
Believe it is blue cheese and nothing else for your boy over here.
Cheese, that's disgusting.
On a salad?
Oh, heck yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I hate
every
blue
time.
cheese.
Tanner.
I'm a balsamic
gross.
vinaigrette guy.
We'll talk.
That's a
on
solid. That's solid.
That's my go-to. Or I'll eat a Caesar salad.
Caesar's my favorite salad to go to. If I'm doing like different, I would go like a Chipotle ranch is probably my favorite.
You guys know I'm out on any white creamy
this
dressing.
Is an orange one. How's that? Better?
No, it's still white. Technically.
Okay.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Believe It or Not. Coming up in 15 minutes, we're going to get into the BK and Ferrario Rewind. But first, I got to tell you about playing fantasy football with Adam Wainwright, Lars Newbar, and others during Big League Impact's 2025 fantasy football season. Help spread some awareness for charitable causes handpicked by the participating players and show off your fantasy skills with a chance to win a variety of prizes. You can find all of the details on how to sign up for Big League Impact's 2025 fantasy football season right now at 101ESPN.com. Coming up next, Power Conference Superlatives entering 2025. T-Bone will give you them for the Big Ten. Bradford and I will go with the SEC. We'll do that next year on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN is powered by Kaufman Townsley St. Louis's injury lawyers. Call 314-500-5000.
hear from you. Use the Scott Lee Mic Drop feature on the 101 mobile app. Give us your opinion on anything St. Louis sports with a mic drop.
Brought to you by the Scott Lee Heating Company.
101 ESPN Sports Center.
Reeling Rays welcome Cards to town. I'm Bradford Bruns. Your Sports Center update is powered by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Tonight at 6:35, St. Louis begins a 3-game set against Tampa Bay. Sonny Gray getting the nod for STL. Kevin Cash's club, meanwhile, has lost 3 straight and 7 of 11. Current action, A's are walloping Twins 6-0. Brewers Cubs underway, Wrigley Field style. This evening's NFL preseason slate includes Steelers Panthers plus Pats Giants. The Sports Center update was presented by Saliga Heating and Cooling, a Daikin heating and air conditioning dealer.
They are St. Louis. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN.
Alongside T-Bone and Bradford on BK, Power Conference Superlatives entering 2025. That's what we're doing here. There's really 2 Power Conference options right now.
Big 12 ACC.
Yeah, you could go with those. We will not be. T-Bone's a Big Ten guy. He's an Illini fan. Both me and Bradford are fans of Mizzou, which means we will be going with the SEC. So we've got 3 of them. Most overrated, most underrated, and your bold prediction for 2025. And after that, we're getting into Bradford's College Football Corner. It's the latest edition. 2 minutes of Bradford uninterrupted, giving you his hottest college football take of the day. We've got 2 more of these this week, 1 more next week before we close things out and Alex returns next Tuesday. So let's get into this. Your Power Conference Superlatives entering 2025. T-Bone, for you, the most overrated team in the Big Ten heading into the upcoming season is who?
I've seen this team be picked anywhere between like 3 to 5 when it comes to the Big Ten. And I think they were overrated last year to begin the year, and they ended up settling in where they belonged. The Michigan Wolverines.
Getting emotional about Michigan?
I am. The Michigan Wolverines are the team for me that is going to be viewed as the most overrated. Everybody's excited for their 5-star quarterback that they just brought in this season in Underwood. Freshman quarterbacks, he's getting the nod, always have growing pains. And he may look good early on when they play New Mexico to start the year. They've got Central Michigan early on as well. But this feels like the Nico Imaleva situation for Tennessee. Now, they made the playoff. I don't think Michigan's going to do that. I don't believe in their head coach. I think they are going to be a team that settles in at 8-4, 7-5, and really struggle in year 1. I think they are very overrated coming into this season.
Ooh, you think Oklahoma can actually handle Michigan right off of the bat? Week 2, right?
I think Oklahoma could beat them. I mean, they're at home against this Michigan squad. Brett Venables is a good defensive coach. He might be able to throw stuff at Underwood. I'm not saying Oklahoma's good. What I'm telling you is Michigan is not good.
Bradford, for you, the single most overrated SEC team heading into 2025 is who?
Tanner, it's funny that you mentioned the old Vols because for me, BK, this is far and away the number 1 prime suspect. Look, I can't get over the fact that this offense, so much has been made about Nico Iamaleava, the saga that was departing, going to UCLA, and basically you're swapping quarterbacks and gaining Aguilar to fill that position. Lest we forget, the last season in the second half of the SEC schedule, in particular, Iamaleava, number 1, he wasn't especially good. I would argue that offense was carried for long stretches. The real engine of that offense was Dylan Sampson. Now, I'm not saying that Tennessee doesn't have the ability to at least replicate some of that production, but he was a bell cow. So between Iamaleava and Sampson departing there, more than 90% of the principal offensive statistics are gone. You no longer have somebody like a Squirrel White at wide receiver. I'm leery of the options out wide as well, let alone Tennessee's ability to move the ball down the field. The defense, by all accounts, is going to be quite good. But Josh Heupel and company get ready to take a severe step back in this particular season. All this talk about still maybe being a fringe CFP team, you have to be kidding me. This team is going to be lucky, honestly, to finish 500 plus in this league.
All right, so my most overrated is the team that is currently being projected as the number 5 team in the SEC. It's Texas, Georgia, Alabama, 4th in the SEC. Texas, Georgia, Alabama are all seemingly the top 3 teams that everybody has in that trifecta. And then it's LSU. I like LSU. I think Garrett Nussmeier is a really good quarterback. I think he's a very good NFL prospect. However, have you guys taken a look at their schedule this year?
It's tough.
Because it starts out with Clemson on the road. That's week 1. Then you have Florida, top 15 team. Ole Miss on the road, a top 25 team. South Carolina at home, top 15 team. Texas A&M at home, top 20 team. I believe really good. We'll get to them later on. At Alabama, top 10 team. At Oklahoma, top 15 team. That is 7 top 25 teams on their schedule heading into the season, including 4 teams in the top 15. I'm really worried about the LSU Tigers being able to meet what their expectations are this season, most notably because, man, is that defense going to be better this year? I like Blake Baker. I think he's a pretty good defense coordinator. They still lack in talent on that side of the ball. It is a multi-year rebuild for them. And last year, the defense was a big reason as to why they disappointed. They should have lost to South Carolina on the road, and then Lenore Sellers got hurt. They fumbled the game away. LSU was able to come back. Gave up 33 points, though, and most of that came in the first half against South Carolina. The defense was god-awful against Texas A&M. It was horrific against Alabama. They weren't even any good against Florida last year down the stretch. So I've got LSU as my most overrated team heading into this season in the SEC. T-Bone, your most underrated Big Ten team is who?
I think the most underrated team for me, and I've gone back and forth on 2 here, and I'm going to settle in on the Nebraska Cornhuskers.
Okay.
USC was the other one that I thought about, but man, the more I've read up on them, the more question marks I have about their defense. Offensively, I think they'll be good. They'll be your typical Lincoln Riley team where they score 50 and give up 55 and lose and go 7-5. Nebraska, I love their quarterback, Dylan Raiola. I think he is going to have a significantly better year here in year number 2 in that program. I love Matt Rule as a college coach. NFL was a disaster. We don't need to talk about that. And the other thing for them is they have such an easy schedule this year. Their big, quote-unquote, non-conference game is Cincinnati. And then Michigan, who I just said is a team that's overrated. I think they can beat them. They've got that game out at home. They don't have another top 25 team on their schedule as of right now in the AP preseason poll until we get to the second to last week of the season when they go on the road at Penn State. They've got a couple toss-up games. I think they will be the team that ends up kind of moving away from that muddy middle in the Big Ten and pushes their way up court. I don't think they're going to be a playoff team, but they may move themselves up into like the top 5 to the about 5-6 range in the Big Ten.
All right, Bradford, I'm going to ask the same question of you. I'm guessing I know where this is going.
You really think I'm going down that road, don't you?
I feel like you probably will.
Maybe in a second. But first, let me tell you, you actually did a great job yesterday, BK, of convincing me, really making a case for this team that I'm going to spotlight at present. As far as underrated squads not associated with that top rung in the SEC, I am looking at more and more this Texas A&M program. And I'm telling you right now, okay, the fact that you entered last November with that record of 7-1, you already had at that point in time 2 different wins against top 10 teams, and then the wheels proceeded to fall off to a degree. I don't care, because coming back year number 2, College Station, for Mike Elko, his imprint, his philosophy, his MO, he wants to be all about that defense. And while this program did sustain a lot of losses on that side of the football to the NFL, I think that Cersei as an edge rusher is going to be able to shepherd that unit. It's going to get better as the season moves along. And there's a lot of talk, obviously, about Marcel Reed. Is he able to really take that next step and be a Lagway Sellers-esque threat entering 2025? For this team, it is about ground and pound too. To wit, last season, when Texas A&M experienced massive success, it was due to the ground game. 6-0 when you are rushing the football for more than 170 yards. Circle that date, late November, guys, November the 29th at Texas, because that one could have a lot of implications. I kid you not. I know Texas A&M hasn't won that game since 2010, but it really could be in play there.
All right, so I'm going to go to a school that I'll probably get laughed at for saying this. However, when you look at the standings, according to the SEC media, predicted order of finish, you go from the bottom to the top, because that's how I'm trying to find, okay, who is the team that I believe to be underrated? Mississippi State, cross them off. Kentucky, cross them off. Arkansas, cross them off. I don't think any of those 3 teams have much to really believe in. And then you get to the 4th from the bottom, and it's Vanderbilt. I think that's too low. I think Vanderbilt last year proved that was not a fluke. They have a very good head coach who is an excellent defensive mind, and their quarterback is legit, man. Diego Pavia is a problem. Now, he plays a style that is very Johnny Football-esque, And if you're going to have that, it's going to have its ups and downs for sure. There will be games this year that he doesn't look good. But when Missouri went into overtime against Vandy last year, I thought it was a disaster. And then I watched the next 2 weeks when they beat Alabama and then they beat Kentucky. And I thought to myself, man, Missouri just went up against a really good team. They had Texas on the ropes for a while. So I think Vanderbilt this year, last year they finished 6-6. I think they could win 8 games. I don't think that would be crazy at all. So if they end up this year taking care of business in the non-con, last year they did not. They lost on the road at Georgia State. Can't have that happen, Vandy. But if they take care of business in their non-con, 8 wins does not feel crazy to me. I thought Bradford was going to go with Mizzou. That's why I didn't have them written down. But Mizzou is also underrated in the SEC. T-Bone, for you, the bold prediction, the Big Ten.
Ditto.
This is going to be really bold. Ohio State has their first 3-loss season dating since 2011 when it was the 1-year run with Luke Fickell. I am concerned about Ohio State and having to replace their quarterback, their coordinator, rushing yards as well from their running back, lost some pieces on defense. I think they lose to Texas to start the year. I think they will lose that November 1st game at home against Penn State. And then some of their games that will be what a lot of people right now view as like easy wins, but I think will end up becoming, hey, like this is the game that sends this over the rails on Ryan Day, whether it's at Washington, at Illinois, at Wisconsin, or their big rivalry game at Michigan, which you can never write off Michigan in that game. They will lose one of those 4, and they will have a 3-loss season and miss the college football playoff.
Speaking of 3 losses, or maybe even 4, I am going down that path when it comes to the Alabama Crimson Tide. Year number 2 for Kalen DeBoer. I don't think that it's going to be demonstrably better. In fact, it could turn out worse because you look at this schedule, especially on the road. You encounter Georgia pretty early on. It's going to be a slugfest. They're traveling to South Carolina. I am still of the opinion that despite all of the losses, leading tacklers, and complimentary parts for sellers, that is going to be a darn good team. You have to handle LSU in your own backyard. You go up against OU later in the season. At that point in time, you would think Venables is going to have both sides of the football really humming there. And Auburn to conclude your regular season at Auburn out there in the Plains, that's not going to be a cakewalk. Also, fans, as much hate, as much distaste as people in Tuscaloosa had for Jalen Milroe last season, be careful for what you wish, because do you know what you have in Ty Simpson? Okay.
Yeah, the answer is no, they don't. And that's an interesting one, man. I don't know what to make of them. I do the decal bias, and I believe in Alabama, but, man, this isn't Nick Saban's Alabama anymore. There's no guarantee that they become the same program that they were. Coaches can make programs, and then, boom, they leave, and it's just gone. Florida State hasn't been the same. Hasn't been the same ever since. Nebraska hasn't been the same. These guys, these programs that have these Hall of Fame coaches that transcend wherever it is that they are, and then they go down into a different cycle. They can get back up. Alabama is a program that was down for a long time before Alabama got there, or before Nick Saban got there, but there's no guarantee that they become that once again. All right, my bold prediction from the SEC, I mentioned this yesterday, but I'm going to go back to it. I believe Texas A&M is a college football playoff team, and I believe they have a chance to be a top 4 team or top 5 team in the college football playoff. I like their quarterback, love their coach, think that defense is difficult as hell to prepare for, and they've got playmakers all over the place. So Texas A&M, to me, if I'm looking at the SEC, a team that could surprise to fit into that top 3 to 4, if Alabama disappoints, if my LSU pick ends up happening, I think Texas A&M is the one that ends up there with Georgia and with Texas as one of the top 3 teams in the SEC. For T-Bone and Bradford, I'm BK. The Rewind is next here on 101 ESPN.
It's an MLB weekend on ESPN. Yankees and Red Sox. Game 1, Saturday, first pitch 12:05. Then Sunday, it's Game 2, first pitch 6:10. The MLB plays on 101 ESPN.
Do Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis symptoms keep coming back? Tremfya, guselkumab, may help, with rapid remission achieved at 12 weeks and lasting clinical remission at 1 year. Some even saw visible improvement of their intestinal lining at 12 weeks and 1 year. Tremfya is a prescription medicine used to treat adults with moderately to severely active Crohn's disease and adults with moderately to severely active ulcerative colitis. Serious allergic reactions and increased risk of infections and liver problems may occur. Before treatment, your doctor should check you for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or if you
Giving you the picture, the real big St. Louis sports picture. It's BK and Ferrario on 101 ESPN. Let's run it back with a daily rewind on BK and Ferrario. Brought to you by Gloria Loom, your home sold guaranteed realty. Selling your home begins at gloriahasthebuyers.com.
Alongside T-Bone and Bradford on BK. You got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. If you guys have missed anything from today's show, be sure to check out the podcast page, 101ESPN.com. The free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. That is always sponsored by
Schaefer Door Company.
Later on today, we will have a new Redbird report that we'll be releasing on the YouTube page, youtube.com/101ESPN STL. There is a new spread zone that is out from yesterday over there as well. College football week 0 lines. They went through all of them. You can check that out again, youtube.com/101 ESPN STL. That is also where you can find the college football connection with our guy Bradford. He's got a lot of college football thoughts. We didn't have enough time in the last segment to do it, but that doesn't mean we allow you to miss out on Bradford's hottest college football take of the day. He's got 2 minutes to do so. He delivers it right now here on BK and Ferrario.
It's time for the 2-minute drill.
Obviously, guys, we're not dealing with that full-fledged slate this coming weekend of college football. However, you would be missing out by not paying attention to the leadoff hitter, week 0 style, out there Saturday morning in Dublin. That's right, kicking it off with those two top 20-ish teams in Ireland. I'm talking about Kansas State and Iowa State. Hey, Cyclones shocking everybody last season, finishing with the 11 victories. They're even returning 12 starters from that squad. So why, I ask you, is Kansas State somehow in the spot favored by 3 points? I'll let the spread zone actually make you some money in that regard. No, because I'll tell you why the Cyclones are feeling undervalued here and for the season. I am not particularly inclined, BK, to take Avery Johnson over Rocco Becht in a would-be shutout, and all you have to do, shootout that is, making sure that you are taking care of business when it comes to Dylan Edwards. If he is not gouging you on the ground from the Wildcats, I like Iowa State in this spot and to repeat a lot of its success from last season. Meanwhile, let's talk about a team that doesn't feel primed for any sort of real breakthrough this coming season. Yeah, that's right. It's going to be Arkansas. But the Razorbacks still preparing accordingly, I guess you could say. It's going to allow fans to rush the field after big wins, after, did you see this, a 3-minute delay. So yeah, the opposing
Bradford
team
gives a 3-minute spiel, and then you can go onto the field.
The opposing team has to make its way to the locker room. That's fine, because number one, this sets any
that'll
degree,
definitely work.
any degree of spontaneity. Number two, good luck finding any would-be signature wins on the schedule. You're not going to get that against Notre Dame a few weeks into the season. You're not going to get that against BK's Texas A&M outfit. Or, you know what, if you really want to get crazy, do your thing versus Alabama A&M, because then it'll just result in one Coach Petrino getting into a neck brace for a different reason.
It's well done, Bradford. Always enjoy it. K-State minus the 3 is free money. They got the better quarterback. They got the better coach. I trust Kansas State in that spot.
Not sold, buddy, but okay.
Technically the home team as well, which obviously matters when you travel over to Dublin.
Farmageddon.
I'm looking forward to it. That should be a really fun game. 11 a.m. K-State versus Iowa State, top 25 matchup between the two. I mean, that's a nice week 0 game.
Yeah.
Nice week 0 matchup for us.
Yeah, I agree with you. I like K-State because I like the quarterback better. I think they win that one by 7-10 is kind of what I'm thinking right now.
All right. Should be a fun game, though. Should be close.
Guys, primed, pumped for Coach Reich's debut for the Cardinal. Can the Cardinal get back on track this year?
We'll see.
Oh, you're talking Stanford. Oh,
Hawaii.
I couldn't remember.
Cardinal. Andrew Luck back in the mix.
I'm going to bet I don't watch that game.
At Stanford. Yeah, be fun.
I don't think it will be.
Cardinals back in action this evening. They do so in Tampa Bay, T-Bone. They got in late last night. They're back in action tonight against the Tampa Bay Rays. It's Sonny Gray back on the mound. How do you think he's going to do in Tampa Bay this evening?
Oh, I got a feeling it's not going to go well. It's probably going to be hot, muggy. His hand's going to be wet.
It's apparently very windy there.
Really?
At that stadium? Yeah, some guys were saying that it's affected the pitching there because the ball flies out in the stadium.
Well, that's not good for him.
Yep.
I was going to bring up the home run numbers. I didn't realize it was because of the wind. I thought it was because of the heat. So, yeah, I'm going to say it's probably a rough outing for Sonny Gray. But Rays are calling up one of their top prospects I saw.
Oh, really? Cool.
Yeah, some shortstop that's got, like, power. Jeff Passan reported today. Can't remember his name.
All right.
It'll be fun to watch.
We'll look forward to that. We'll break it all down for you tomorrow. Possibly Jason Stark. We'll see on that. Feels very 50-50 in that regard. We will definitely have Brad Thompson and Macadoodle Mike McKenna joining us tomorrow, as they do each and every Friday. For Tanner Hendrickson and Bradford Bruns, I'm Brandon Kiley. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. The Fast Lane's coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
101 ESPN has your chance to win a pair of free tickets to this year's Blues and Brews on Friday evening, September 19th at the Anheuser-Busch Brewery. Get fired up for the Blues season at this outdoor street party featuring live music from Grammy-nominated trio, the band Perry. Plus appearances by Blues players and alumni, food trucks, onstage festivities hosted by 101 ESPN's Chris Kerber and Joey Vitale, and more. Tickets are on sale now for Blues and Brews, presented by Bud Light, 101 ESPN, and 92.3 WIL. Find all the details and that chance to win free tickets now at 101ESPN.com and on the 101 mobile app.